that we do not need to introduce new taxes to rake in more revenue. We are going to broaden the tax nest. We are actually going to enhance compliance. And you hear a lot of this in the budget when it is presented. And you see, in fact, he hinted that as a country, we are not taking advantage of the economic rent that we are supposed to generate revenue through the exploiting industry. And so that is one area that we are going to look at, and I believe that will be able to rake in more revenue. To be honest with you, because we have been denied access to the international bond market, we have to do twin things: enhance revenue and also manage expenditure. And so the budget that will be presented on the 11th of this month, you are going to see a lot of that. A lot of people are concerned that where will the growth come from if we are going to cut expenditure. We will cut expenditure, but we will channel growth, we will channel the expenditure that we have to do to areas that will generate the growth that we need. I wouldn't want to preempt a lot of things that will be said on the 11th, but you will see some wonderful measures that will help us achieve all the things that we have said. To be honest with you, we are almost through with the preparation of the budget. However, the outcome of this forum may also feed into the finalization of the budget that will be presented. And we are looking at medium to long term how to put this economy on trajectory for sustained growth. And let me end by saying that President Mahama's vision to organize this economic forum is actually motivated also by the fact that we know, he mentioned earlier on, that he is already focused, he is determined in the direction he wants to send this country and the economy. But he needs to build consensus. Since '92, we have seen change of government from one party to the other. What is the point in gathering only for another person to come years after to scatter all the gains that you have made? That is why it is important for us to build consensus, so that if in the next 16 years, 20 years, another party takes the reins of this country, there is consensus on the path to development.
For better growth, inclusive growth. And I think that the Minister for Finance, the way he presented the state of the economy was fantastic, breaking it down where we've been doing badly and what we need to be able to grow this economy to what we want. What I like about this thing is that President Mahama has said he's going to be the leader who sacrifices and transforms for this economy to grow. What we had lacked in the past were political leaders who were prepared to lead and sacrifice for this economy to be transformed. And I'm happy that President Mahama has taken that role, that he's promised he's going to sacrifice himself, and we are all behind him.
It goes beyond this verbal commitment for transformation. We've heard this verbal commitment for transformation before. The previous administration described this economy as a Gadgetsburg economy. We know that. You and I know this. But we did not see much beyond that verbal commitment. What do you want to see?
All of us as Ghanaians, committed, working hard, whatever you are doing, the little that you do adds up to growth, domestic product. So with integrity, honesty, hard work, not stealing wherever we are put, but looking out for the interests of our brothers who are in the village, the villagers. If you steal 10,000, that doesn't go to build a school or a chair for a young boy to develop their talent, a young girl to develop their God-given talents, then you are doing something wrong. So this is a resetting. We should forget about the past and look forward, reset the economy and grow the economy.
What is your verdict on the state of the economy?
My
verdict on the state of the economy as you are experiencing it now?
It is difficult, it is hard, but they say that when things are tough, that's when the strong people, the strong men and women get going. And resetting, if the president...
When things are tough, that's when you have the men and women who are strong to get things going. A communique was presented after this economic dialogue, capturing proposals of the persons who took part and made suggestions to government on how to address the economic situation and the quagmire that we are faced with. But beyond this communique, the question is, what next? The persons, some of them who were part of this conversation, that is the economic dialogue, are going to be joining us this morning to have a conversation about the state of the economy as we have it and what has to be done beyond the talk. And also the state-owned enterprises. From what we're told by the finance minister during the dialogue, almost all state-owned enterprises are in red, meaning they are running at a loss. That is the situation of the state-owned enterprises in this country. But even though they are running at a loss, we are still pumping money in there. Question is, how do we turn them around? There are many who believe that privatization of some of these SOEs is the way to go. Others talk about a private participation in the public or state-owned enterprises. Well, the Public Sector Workers Union say it's not entirely the case. There is something more than just the workers, or privatizing a public institution or a state-owned institution. So we'll hear from them as well what they think can be done to turn around the fortunes of these state-owned enterprises. So that's the fundamental question that we're going to be answering this morning here on Key Point, together with my guests this morning. Also on Key Point this morning, we will deal with the matter of the governor of the central bank, Dr. Johnson Isiama. He has assured Parliament the central bank will conduct a value for money audit into the construction of the over $261 million head office. Now, this figure has changed over time, and that was one of the issues that Parliament sought to find out from him, exactly what led to the increase in the amount or the figure for this building over time. Alexander Penyomakin attempted, in fact, ask questions about really what has to be the way forward after this, especially because the governor has come to speak. They say there's really no need for value for money audit. We'll have a conversation on that this morning here on Key Point. Also, this week, we had the return of Gifty Owari Mensah. She's one of a number of persons whose names were mentioned in this ghost names saga with the National Service Authority. Well, earlier, almost 2 weeks ago, the National Intelligence Bureau had put out a notice of she being invited for questioning, but she was out of the jurisdiction. She's back. We have the SkyTrain matter as well, which we understand, apart from Professor Mia Konfi, some other persons will be invited as well. This morning, we'll have a conversation beyond her return and beyond what's been happening with Professor Mia Konfi. What next in these two cases? We'll have a conversation this morning. As always, you're an integral part of the show. Welcome. This is Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and on DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. We're on a number of radio stations across the country and also in the UK and in the United States. My name is Alfred Okansi. After this quick break, when we're back, my guest will join me in the studio. The conversation starts right now. Stay with us.
Ramadan is here again, and Danube Home, Dubai's leading furniture home, offers you 55% on all products in our showroom from 1st March to 31st March 2025. Locate Danube Home opposite Allied Filling Station at Abelinkpi Junction.
One upgrade is nice, but a double upgrade is amazing. And that's how we do it. Upgrade today to get even more with Step Up. If you're on GoTV Max and upgrade to GoTV Super, you'll get way more with GoTV Super Plus.
Hey, it's so cool!
Get big value. Get big entertainment.
Very good.
Perfect! Upgrade and get even more with GoTV.
Yeah.
GoTV. Love it.
This is Hot Issues, your passport to the most compelling conversations of our time. We go one-on-one with the movers and shakers, the thought leaders, and the game changers. We ask the questions that matter, and we don't back down. Tonight on Hot Issues, I sit with the man at the center of corruption investigations. Join me on Hot Issues here on TV3.
Hot Issues shows Sundays at 2 p.m. on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
This is the show that brings finality to all the critical issues. It is the stage where all the facts are checked, issues thoroughly interrogated, opinions shaped, and debates settled. But over here, we do more than just talk. We resolve problems. We hold those in power accountable. We address all the key happenings in society, from politics to health to education to everything you deem important. And we will center the voice of the ordinary Ghanaian. This is the show that sets the agenda.
Agenda now shows on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on TV3.
TV3, first in news.
Assassin. Yes, indeed. It's that special moment to be patriotic. It's Ghana Month on Talented Kids. The unity and desire to die for Mother Ghana. Join our contestants celebrate the land of our birth by giving you electrifying performances that will glorify our beloved country. Don't let the devil deceive you. The special Ghana Month edition is coming your way this Sunday right here on TV3 at 4 p.m. Talented Kids, free to play.
Powered by Indomie. Sponsored by
Napa Foods,
Flora Tissues, Top Choco,
Fortune Spread for Bread, Vitamilk.
After an intense and demanding sales task, 2 contestants were evicted. This week, it's all about innovation as the contestants bring their best mix of creativity and strategy to life.
So this is the filament of PLA. So it melts through the nozzle and is heated at 220 degrees Celsius.
Which element of the work is your own unique idea?
With our own, you are able to get the SMS and then the precise location.
You can't sit in your bedroom and say they need a fire detector. They probably don't care.
Who will make it to the next stage and who will face eviction? This is Top Intern.
Top Intern Season 2 shows Sunday at 3 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by Tampico.
What's the best part about your job?
The best part is saving lives. Mother goes home with her baby or the mother is saved, and those days are very fulfilling.
A journey of inspiration and empowerment. Meet women who have overcome challenges, embraced their passions, and made a difference in the world.
But if I ask you your fondest memory,
I think it's the children patting me and saying, Miss P, I want to wee-wee.
From heart-to-heart conversations to unforgettable experiences, we explore the emotional highs and lows of womanhood. We'll celebrate the incredible achievements of women and inspire the next generation right here on Today's Woman. Today's Woman with Cookie Tea shows Saturdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by Cousin's Baby.
For better growth, inclusive growth, And I think that the Minister for Finance, the way he presented the state of the economy was fantastic, breaking it down where we've been doing badly and what we need to be able to grow this economy to what we want. What I like about this thing is that President Mahama has said he's going to be the leader who sacrifices and transforms for this economy to grow. What we had lacked in the past were political leaders who were prepared to lead and sacrifice for this economy to be transformed. And I'm happy that President Mahama has taken that road, that he's promised he's going to sacrifice himself, and we are all behind him.
It goes beyond this verbal commitment for transformation. We've heard this verbal commitment for transformation before. The previous administration described this economy as a gadgets-based economy. We know that. You and I know this. But we did not see much beyond that verbal commitment. What do you want to see?
All of us as Ghanaians, committed, working hard, whatever you are doing, the little that you do adds up to grow domestic product. So with integrity, honesty, hard work, no stealing wherever we are put, but looking out for the interest of our brothers who are in the village, the villagers. If you steal 10,000, that doesn't go to build a school or a chair for a young boy to develop their talent, a young girl to develop their God-given talents, then you are doing something wrong. So this is a resetting. We should forget about the past and look forward, reset the economy and grow the economy.
What is your verdict on the state of the economy?
My
verdict on the state of the economy as you are experiencing it now?
It is difficult. It is hard. But they say that when things are tough, that's when the strong people, the strong men and women get going. And resetting, if the president resets and is prepared to lead us, we will follow.
Celebrated economist Kwame PNM there. The resetting says we all have a role to play. But then again, if you recall, that's been questioned about this administration presenting a manifesto to the Ghanaian people. And then this dialogue also having its own recommendations on how to turn around the economy. How do they marry both recommendations? And do they really find these recommendations in the communique that was read today? Does it find any legs in the manifesto of the NDC? It's a question that we're going to be asking a presidential staffer who's going to be joining us on the show this morning. But these were just some of the proposals in the National Economic Dialogue. That's the communique that was read by Dr. Ishmael Yamson. Take a look at this. It said they're prioritizing efforts to restore macroeconomic stability and regain confidence in the economy, aggressively pursuing inclusive and sustainable growth for economic transformation, promote private sector-led growth to unlock the full potential of businesses. And this is one that, you know, the language is not entirely new, but what has to be done differently? Well, this is what I'll be finding out from my guest this morning. Innovatively address the infrastructure deficit to advance economic transformation. This language certainly is not new. Implement structural and policy reforms, especially in key sectors for growth. Promote good governance, accountability, and relentlessly eliminate corruption. And look at the last point. Say, relentlessly eliminate corruption. Promotion of good governance, accountability, and relentlessly eliminating corruption. That's another issue that we'll talk about this morning. What the measures that have been put in place so far. Can it and would it relentlessly eliminate corruption and the fight against corruption beyond it just looking at the actions or inactions on the part of persons in the previous administration? Have enough measures been put in place to ensure that corruption is also prevented or fought in the current administration? You hear Professor Kwasari, he said it on this program, that yes, Oral has done their work, but he would want to see OPAL, Operation Prevent or Loot, as well. So this morning we'll have a conversation. But another issue that came up during the economic dialogue is the state of the state-owned enterprises, the SOEs that we have in this country. The finance minister says all of them, in fact, almost all, are in red. Almost all state-owned enterprises are posting losses. That's scary. And that you and I should be concerned. And I'll tell you why. Because it is our money. It is the taxpayers' money that's used to fund the operations of these state-owned enterprises. And they are supposed to be posting profits for you and I. But then again, that's not what we are seeing. Take a look at this. This is what the finance minister presented at the economic dialogue. ECG tops the list when it comes to the loss-making state-owned enterprises. Since 2021, they've been posting losses over the period. Over 1.45 billion. 2022 was the worst, at least over the last 4 years, over 8 billion. 2023, over 5.9, in fact, almost 6 billion. The Ghana Great Company posted some profits in 2021. Since then, they posted losses in 2022 and 2023. VRA posted profits in 2021, posted losses in 2022 and 2023. And take note of the first 5. You have 3 of the SOEs in the power and electricity generation, distribution, all in there. You see that. ECG, Ghana Great Company, VRA. And then you also have Ghana Railway Company, PSC Tema Shipyard, Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Company, GIHOC, GNPA, all in that order. They are not alone in this. PMMC is there, also posting losses. Airtel Tigo. Very interesting story about Airtel Tigo. You know, we were said to have bought the shares of that company for one Ghana. And Ghana Post, Graphic Communications, Ghana Cocoa Board. Cocoa Board, well, it's another story on its own. We see that according to the finance minister, the profits that you see in 2023 over almost 2.3 billion was actually artificial profit, because at the time they were not servicing their debt. But then if you take out the debt and what they're owed in that particular year, there was really no profit to look at in that year. That's the question right now on the minds of many. What has to be done going forward? Well, that's the first part of our conversation this morning. And we're live on 3FM 92.7, on TV3 Ghana, on Facebook, on a number of radio stations across the country, and also in the United States and the UK. And I welcome the persons who are listening to us in the diaspora as well. Joining me in the studio is Bernard Ejay. He's a General Secretary of the Public Sector Workers Union of Ghana. Mr. Ejay, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And they will make a case as to why the proposals to privatize these SOEs that are making losses, they say that's not the way to go. The public sector workers say they can work to turn around the fortunes of these SOEs. Question is, they've been working in these SOEs all this while. So what are you going to do differently? That's going to be the question they have to answer for all of us. Mm-hmm. Also, Martin Pebo is a private legal practitioner. He is a member of the oral preparatory team that has done their work, and then also the leader of the Kumepeku Reloaded demonstration, Lawyer Martin Pebo. Good morning. Welcome.
Morning, Mr. Okansi. Good. As usual, let me do the ritual greetings to Government Kentucky Tech Uchuru II for his unflinching fight to get justice in the Cecilia Adapa matter. Chief Justice Sofa Ekufu, now on the Council of State, and promising that he'll be giving robust, candid, and forward-looking advice, and not on the Council of State to parrot John Mahamad's wishes. And then Domahini Osiabiyeyo Ajimabedu II, Domahini, more vim. We remember the tribulations, the trials you went through for giving Oliver Bakavomawo bail. God continue to bless and keep you. And Mr. Kansi, of course, our 52.5 billion, Auditor General Johnson, we need to get into the bottom of that matter. You promised a report on the missing 52.5 billion from December 2020 till now. Come out with the report. Yes, we know that, look, usually by now, they will find some ex post facto rationalizations, etc., to justify that the money didn't get lost. But at least you bring the report, let's scrutinize. By all means, something will give you away. So that report must come. Otherwise, for me, I think very soon I'll even be petitioning for the removal of the Auditor General. Because one report on 52.5 billion from December 2020, we are now in 2025. Why? What is it? Who are you shielding? You wrote the letter and said there was money missing. Okay, they couldn't trace from GCB into thin air. And now bring the reporter and also Daniel Asem. Come on, let's get into it. So can say finally, our Greek matter that, yes, I've seen that we'll be coming to it, the president's speech, yes. But we want to remind our young people that, look, we all have to get into agriculture. We have to Operation Feed Yourself. I think the president gave it a new name. I'll look at the speech again and then come. But it's essentially Operation Feed Yourself. It's embarrassing. I mean, coming to sit here, we talk year in, year out, and yet we can't feed ourselves. We import about 100 million of million cedis worth of mango from Burkina Faso. It's insanity. Burkina Faso, desert land. Then the tomatoes, over 300 million, etc. Yes. Anyway, and finally, I heard Gift Owari has been arrested. We want to remind the NIB that 48 hours is 48 hours. Because, you know, today is Saturday, tomorrow Sunday. The Supreme Court has been very clear. If you want to detain her beyond 48 hours, please go to the court. There is a way. The Chief Justice, Eni Yeboah, gave the circular in 2020, sometime in 2020, on how to do it. You go and see the registrar. Tomorrow, there will be a judge for you. You don't even need to get to the 48 hours. Let's be very clear.
Even on Sunday, the court will sit.
Yes.
If so demanded.
Absolutely. You remember even recently the NDC cases, some of them on public holidays. And when the decision came out in 2019, me sitting here, I've been to court Saturdays on a number of occasions, and then the public holidays. And you see as I said a few weeks ago, the NDC petitions, some of them were held on a public holiday, right? Yeah, so please, NIB, let's do the needful. If you intend to keep Gift Owari beyond 48 hours, then today, I even prefer that go today, because the Supreme Court said, don't wait till you are getting to the 48 hours, because sometimes when you're planning that, okay, I have 2 hours more to go, so that's the time you start preparing, something may happen and you'll be late. The moment it goes beyond the 48 hours, you are in breach of the law. Very, very clear. They say 48 hours is 48 hours. That was Sophia Kufu's valedictory judgment. That's the last judgment before she left, she retired as the Chief Justice and Supreme Court judge. So please, let's try and work within the timelines. 48 hours doesn't mean that wait after 48 hours, then now you're prepared to go to court. No, it says within. If you arrest somebody, that's Article 14, Clause 3. If you arrest somebody, then, or a suspect, whether suspect or the person is accused at that time, and there are differences, and you want to detain the person beyond 48 hours, then make sure that you go to court within, please, with all the energy I can master, go to court within the 48 hours, please. Not after the 48 hours. And the more you wait and think that, oh, I'll get him before the 48 hour, if something happens and then you don't find the court early enough and it goes beyond, it's a breach of the law. Gift Owari can sue you, and I'll be happy to represent her. Once it's 48 hours, that one, as citizens, we all must jump in, right? Because we don't know tomorrow.
So you'll be happy to represent Gift Owari?
Oh, yes, if once it's 48 hours.
48 hours.
Yeah. If NIB breaches it, that one, let's not play. Yes, the fact that I want her to face justice doesn't mean that we should keep her beyond 48 hours. No, that one, let's not do that. It's not worth it. I mean, she has come into the country. If she intended to abscond, I'm sure she wouldn't have come back. So once she has come in, let 48 hours be 48 hours. And it applies to all of them. I mean, this is what there was a lot of abuse. That's why I went to court. So for those who don't know that case, 48 hours is 48 hours. That's the case of Martin Pebu number 4 versus Attorney General number 4. Please, Saturday, Sunday is no longer an excuse. The courts will open.
So that previously they used to say because it's a weekend, when they arrest you on Friday, they keep you till Monday.
Yeah, it's long gone. That big
you challenge the law.
Absolutely.
And you got judgment in your favor.
Well, it's for the people of Ghana. I always say the Supreme Court is a policy court. So when you go, they look at the case. It's not even your English. You know, sometimes it's an irony. Sometimes you go back and read what you wrote and say, how did I write this? Because you are not happy with the choice of words. Sometimes there are a few typos here and there. But it's a policy court. So they look beyond even the lawyer's abilities. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes your language may not be that perfect or up to scratch, but they look at it. Because even in India, and they've said it in our courts here, a lay citizen can just get up and write about a constitutional problem to their constitutional court. It's a letter. Yes, that's the form they do. You write, dear Chief Justice, there is this and this and this problem. Express yourself. When they read it and they see the problem, then they put together the brief. So the point I'm just emphasizing is that when you see the Supreme Court decisions, there are a lot of policy decisions. The Supreme Court is a policy court. It's not about, I'll be shark lawyer, I'm crack. No. It's more about policy. Okay.
I see. Now, so this is Kwebu number 4.
Absolutely.
And so because of you, at least, nobody has to suffer the injustice of being behind bars or in custody for beyond the 48 hours with that excuse. At least with your own resources as well, you challenge the law.
Yes,
you challenge the law, and now all offenses are expected to be bailable, even though it's at the discretion of the judge.
Yes.
So you have Kwebu number 1, number 2, Kwebu number 3, Kwebu number 4.
Yeah. All
this delivering or improving on the justice delivery system.
Absolutely.
In this country. So congratulations to you once again. You have done your bit.
To the Supreme Court.
Anyway, so this is another matter we'll get into, this Gift Your Worry matter as well. But I also want to now welcome, for the first time on the show, Professor Stephen Adey. He is a renowned economist, former chairman of the National Development Planning Commission. Professor Stephen Adey, good morning. Welcome, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you this morning. Join us.
Welcome.
Thank you. I would also be joined by Dr. Boama Otokono, who is the Director of Presidential Initiatives in Agriculture and Agribusiness. Because, Council, you mentioned agriculture and agribusiness as well. He will be speaking essentially about some of the issues that came up at the National Economic Dialogue and what the way forward should be. But I'll start with you, Professor Adey. So this is not the first time we've had a dialogue like this, and engagements and proposals on how to address the economic situation that we're faced with. You observed what went on and some of the discussions that took place. The proposals that were made, did you get that sense of conviction that the commitment to implement them is there based on the comments that government has made or government officials have made during and after this dialogue? Prof.
First of all, so long as the country exists, there must be a continuous dialogue. And I think that especially at the beginning of a new government with inheriting the crisis we went through, the debt restructuring, I think it was quite ingenious for them to have very early to have this dialogue. I see the dialogue to have two elements. One is social mobilization, trying to carry the people along. So irrespective of the outcome of it, it was a good move.
Yes.
And it took too long. I think that the previous government missed it because everybody was saying that, let us talk together, no matter how difficult the situation is. Once you bring minds together, there will be a way out.
Yes.
I must say that on this occasion, the president on the two occasions, about what, 8 years ago, 2014, he called the Senche one, which, because I was maybe younger, I was invited. I chaired one of the CIS.
Yeah, you were there. I was there with you.
Not just with you, we were not at the same level. I was chairing you well. That's for the joke of it. So I think that for that purpose, it was good. Secondly, I think that the issues which were touched were quite. But unlike the Senche, this one is much more broad areas. I think that it has to be translated into specific policy actions, and that you don't do it at this jamboree. And I don't know the type of arrangement they have. There must be an economic advisory group who really will support the minister for, in this case, the economic side, Minister for Finance. I don't know. Each time, by our constitutional provision, there's an advisory board of every ministry, and how he composes them and whether he will listen to them will be what will determine what will come out of it. But I decided on the second day to gate crash because I wasn't invited,
So
only to get to the door, and I was given a
card,
which means that at least my name was mentioned, but nobody invited me.
So if your accreditation was there, then it means you were actually supposed to be invited.
To be invited. Somebody just decided to ditch me.
Sometimes it's good to get crashed.
Yes, and I couldn't say that Stephen Ade was missing in action. I live in my village, and then everybody knows how. But anyway, so I sat in only for 2 hours because I wasn't. I just thought that I should show that I'm interested in national economic dialogue, whether I'm invited or not. And but when I sat on the economic subgroup, I was quite impressed by the type of people who were there, both the current governor and his deputy. There were, you could see from there, Mr. Mpianim, Kwame Mpianim. There was the 3 ex-governors, apart from the immediate one, which I think that I hope they invited him and maybe he turned it down. If they didn't, I think that it is quite good because.
But Dr. Addison was there actually.
He was there.
Yes, Dr. Addison was there for the first day.
The first day, okay. I went to the second day against Christ. So, and I think that that type of symbolism is very good for Ghana. Listen, at the end of the day, Ghana does not belong to NDC or NPP. I always say that. I don't know you, the politicians, how many people are registered MPP members and NDC members. They will be less than 250,000. And that is why sometimes, let me honestly, I get angry when some party members say that, oh, he's not with us. No. You must always look for the right people. And the government of the day, you are blessed if you get the right advice and you implement them and you succeed. Because actually, to be honest with you, I've always believed that Ghana needs a government, a good government, which will be in power for 20 years.
A good government
which will be in power
for 20 years.
That doesn't mean that the same president get me.
So that if period you want
if John, you are thinking of, I'm not supporting you, 4 years you are going, but a government with a long-term strategy, which we implement it successively because it takes that. If you go to, say, China, every 5 years, but they have a longer term, about 50 years, and they are going step by step. We cannot continue resetting the agenda. And that's what we actually, the fact that the NDC talking about resetting the agenda today is just formalizing it. We have been resetting the agenda. Every government almost starts as if there's a coup. And then we start it all over again. So I think that is good. It's a good beginning, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating. It's really actualizing this broad, I look at the communique, very, very broad. It's almost like motherhood. You could have taught any economic 101 with it, but that is the beginning. It's now to bring them down into policy because a young child said that after the wedding, cutting the cake. We have a serious situation of stabilizing the economy, which was mentioned there. I mean, they touch on all the relevant issues. We have the issue of how to balance the budget, how to raise revenue, how to rationalize expenditure. And then you come to the other areas. You are talking agriculture, but let me tell you, if we don't deal with galamsey, agriculture in the southern, forget it. Fortunately, when it comes to grains, we have the northern territories, which we can cash in. So there are serious ones, and I think that as they have begun, they will continue for the good of Ghana.
And as you indicated, this is not the first time we've had a dialogue of a sort, and the names change, and every administration comes with its own agenda. So for you headed the NDPC. So this whole
I was a chairman. Yeah, there's always executive secretary. Okay, go on.
To that extent, that we always talk about a long-term plan, and you say that to the extent that every 4 years we go to the polls, and there's a likelihood that after every 8 years, at least as we have seen that cycle, there's always going to be a change. There's a disconnect between that call for a long-term vision and the continuous change of government. You would have expected that at least we should have a system where one party will be in power for 20 years. What would be the way forward in doing this?
Yes, I think that in fact, when I joined the UN, I was with the UNDP for 11 and a half years. And the first, as an economic advisor, the first thing they did was there was 4 of us recruited to let us tour all the Asian developing countries, South Korea, Thailand, and all of them, Malaysia, to see. And one of the things that really struck me was that each one of them had what they call Economic Advisory Bureau or National Economic Bureau, various forms of National Development Planning Commission. And they were highly respected. They were well equipped with intellectuals. In fact, in South Korea, Park went to World Bank and IMF and said, every one of you there, come home, I will pay you the same, because of how he valued the intellectual capital. And the Korean Development Institute was such a brain behind the Korean. And interestingly, all the countries had them. In Ghana, sad to say, we have made politics an end in itself. Let me tell you that our governments are not interested in the National Development Planning Commission. They don't fund them. They don't equip them with the technical personnel which is needed, and most of the time, they wouldn't listen. I was chairman of NDPC for 2.5 years. The council itself couldn't have a dialogue once with the president.
You couldn't meet the president?
No. And we prepared a document. We prepared a document, Ghana at 100. We couldn't even go and present a copy. So our politics by itself has become an end, because unless the presidency values economic strategy, policies, and advice, we can say everything. The only president who showed such interest, apart from Nkrumah, was Atta Mills.
My favorite. You see, everybody sees it.
Because, and that, you know how I was so impressed. I must say that he was my fan and personal friend, so let me say that. But I'm being as objective as I can. You know, the constitutional review was, it was first bipartisan. The people who were in it, Professor Fiajo chairing it, Akintin, Apia Menka Akintin, and all of them. We couldn't have had such a good body. They came out with the good results. Unfortunately, though he's called Atta, let me say, Fufi and Tuata, now Bamuso, because he got sick while he was still there. And the NDC is the one that torpedoed the wonderful work that was done. So
I think it's a lawsuit. Professor Azan went to court.
Yes.
He clicked the wings of
I think Prof missed that one.
No.
Prof missed that one.
No, let me tell you.
The case was in the Supreme Court.
Yes, let me tell you.
Prof missed that one.
No, let me tell you. When you are in a position of leadership, that's why I like my senior, Dr. Kobrenji, said there are many ways to kill a cat.
Indeed.
If a president wants to be committed to certain ones, Azar that you can do it.
Yeah, I know.
So that is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you, the lawyer and that things. But the commitment, I tell you that if His Excellency Atta Mills had not died, we have seen a positive change when it comes to strategic direction and putting in place the type of changes that we need.
See, now you talk about, and I'll come to you, that beyond today, I mean, beyond the commendation, what has to be done in terms of the implementation of the proposals so captured in this communique? Because you say that the president must value economic policy and proposals beyond just the talk. And to hear that even you, at the time you were chairing the National Development Planning Commission, you did not have audience. That's also another matter. But Dr. Peter Boamotokono is now joining us in studio. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Alfred.
Is the president going to put some value on the economic policy proposals from this dialogue?
Certainly, Alfred. First of all, let me commend all those from civil society, from academia, and the various segments of society that joined the National Economic Dialogue. I think that once again, as a people, we made history of coming together, building consensus about the way forward. I recall that from 2017, when we realized that our friends in government clearly did not understand the real situation that we were in, we started calling for this National Economic Dialogue. And that was within the space where we suggested that perhaps they ran back to the IMF, and they were laughing at us and saying that we lacked ideas, and that's why we are talking about economic dialogue. I recall they said the same thing in 2014 when we were going to Senchi, and they said, oh, NDC here, they lack ideas. They don't have the ideas, so they are going around seeking for people's thoughts to run the economy. But what they fail to understand is that wisdom does not lie in one man's head. And that's why the accounts have an adage that it's a So it means that if you want to go far, you go together. If you want to go fast, you go alone, but you break down along the line. But if you want to go far, you go together. And so within this spirit of comradeship, of togetherness, of unity, national unity, we proposed that our friends engaged this kind of dialogue, but they refused. And so President Mahama, throughout the campaign, was announcing that the first thing he would do as a president is to organize this national economic dialogue so that together we can take a reflective view of our economy and see how we can chart a more sustainable, accelerated approach to our economic transformation. And thankfully, just a few days ago, we were able to come through with this exercise. What I saw last 2 days we spent with the National Economic Dialogue was a genuine desire by the people of this country for that economic transformation. And that's why Professor Stephen Adair, even without his invitation card, would be motivated to go to the forum and seek to participate. And he's not the only one. There were a lot of people. I recall one of my lecturers, former lecturers, called me that he traveled all the way from Tamale and he's there and he wants to participate. And so there was this general desire by civil society organizations, even by the other political parties, to participate, except that the major opposition were not willing. And it's very consistent with them. And these are a group of people who believe that even national development policy is not necessary. You know, we don't need a national development policy.
No, as intended. To the technical, because some of us feel uncomfortable.
It's allowed. It's very important.
Make a statement and go.
No. These are very important because these are matters of public record. And when you have Osafo Mafo indicates that, I mean, he doesn't believe in national development plans. And so it's okay for them not to participate, but I think it would have been more enriched if the MPP had participated. I recall readily, and maybe because I mentioned Honorable Osafo Mafo, let me indicate that in 2014 at Senchi, when everybody said the MPP said they will not participate. He actually participated.
Yes.
Yes, so Osafo. Yes, for 2014 he participated. Yes, and so this is a very important exercise, and I believe that some of the revelations and the discoveries and the policy proposals, as has been said, broad though, but it gives us a guide. And if you had participated in the sub-plenary sessions and the discussions, you would see that there were a lot of detailed ideas that, were captured from the discussions, which would not make space in the communique.
Yes.
And so for anybody reading the communique may think that, these are just broad, economic theories and all that. But they are concrete, workable, and feasible proposals that have been made by the National Economic Dialogue. And I think if we work with that, it's going to be exceedingly useful, particularly maybe just to touch on a few.
Before we go into that, and because you mentioned that when the conversation about the dialogue started, it was questioned. And you can understand why, because you campaigned with a manifesto, with a set of promises and policies on how you intend to revamp or reset the economy. Now you win power, then you do a national dialogue with another set of recommendations in the communique. How does that find a place in your manifesto promises that you won power with?
Okay, first of all, let me indicate that even the process for the preparation of our manifesto was somewhat of a national economic dialogue, because I played a very critical role. I served on the Economy and Finance Committee and served on the Agri Committee and the Manifesto Committee as well. And President Mahama's directives to the committee was to engage as widely as possible. And so let me start from 2017. After the 2016 elections, the Manifesto Committee that was put together to prepare the 2016 manifesto was tasked to progress with the work that we did. And so what we had to do for the 2020 elections was to go for the People's Manifesto and reach out to almost everybody that matters. We engage civil society, we engage diplomatic partners, we engage ordinary people to develop the People's Manifesto. And I recall when we failed in 2020, President Mahama invited the entire Manifesto Committee and said, look, I want this Manifesto Committee to continue the work from here. So from 2021, we started working on our manifesto. And I'm sure we had conversations about some of our engagements with almost every single organization that you can think of, the development partners, how they think Ghana can be transformed, the civil society, labor unions, and so on and so forth. And so we have been doing a lot of conversation. And so the things you see in our manifestos, the proposals, the policy proposals, were not just ideas that emanated from only the NDC. It was out of extensive consultation. And so we believed that even though we had done extensive consultation, there cannot be an end to consensus building.
Yeah.
And so we have sold our manifesto. Everybody has bought into the manifesto. But this national economic dialogue will also afford us the opportunity to get more and even look at more efficient ways of implementing our specific policies in the manifesto. And so what I observed in the 2-day session was that some of the conversations even targeted or were centered around some of our proposals in our manifestos, so that you would be able to chart a more efficient way of implementing your manifesto promises in the midst of the broader, economic objectives of the country, so that you do not miss the point. And so our manifesto promises are key, and we hope to fulfill them. But one thing that you must understand from we economists is that, you see, economic data and economic performance can be looked at in various perspectives, and we can defend anything and feel that is the best. Somebody would even tell you that high inflation is good, and he would find, data to defend it. And so it's not only about the policy proposals you have made in your manifesto, but it's about the efficient ways of managing and implementing the policy in such a manner that it is responsive to the needs of the people.
Which has
for
always
example,
been the problem.
For example, last week we were discussing GDP growth. And when you look at the numbers, you would see that our GDP mainly is driven by the extractive industry. You understand? Now, if your GDP is growing and it is based on the extractive industries, that GDP is not a job creation GDP.
Yeah.
It doesn't create jobs. It doesn't respond to the needs of the people. And so, if your GDP is being driven by something like agriculture, like industry, like manufacturing, then you are sure that your GDP is responding and creating jobs. Because the net policy effect of all the things, all the policies you put together in your country is essentially to protect jobs in your country, to improve the livelihoods of the people and improve the income levels of your people. And so if your economy is growing and it doesn't produce jobs, it doesn't protect the jobs of the people, it doesn't improve the incomes of the people, there is no capital accumulation, then there is a problem. Alfred, one of our biggest problems in this country is capital accumulation. And I will give you a very interesting example. Do you know that last week or last 2 weeks, MTN declared their dividends? And their dividends of about 5.6 billion Ghana cedi. And check the trends of our currency. You will see that immediately the dividends were declared, the currency slumped a little bit within that period. That meant that all the dividends are being moved out of the country, because then you put pressure on the currency because you have declared dividends. It is because the investors who invest in MTN, the monies are from outside. So there is low capital accumulation in the country. And so most of the investment portfolios, even in the extractive industry, are not from Ghanaians. They are not from local people. And so if your economy is growing based on the extractive industry, what it simply means is that you are going to have problems with your currency, because the profits that are made will be repatriated. And when they move their monies out of the country, that's where your currency suffers.
I think that we conceded last week. I mean, if you look at the breakdown of that 6.3 growth in the GDP for 2024, if you look at the details in the subsector growth, the highest growth that contributed to the 6.3 was scored or experienced in the mining sector, mining and quarrying.
Yeah.
And then went to construction, and agriculture was down below. I think the fifth contributing sector.
I think it was the seventh
to that growth. So something has to be done differently, and that's where the thinking has to go. And one person who also was one of the presenters, I sat through his plenary session, Franklin Kujo, Executive Director and founding president of the Imani Center for Policy and Education. Franklin is joining us on Zoom right now. Mr. Kujo, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
And Alfred, good morning, my good friends in the studio. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly, and we can see you as well. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. I'm going to come to you because, I mean, you were one of the presenters, the speaker at the plenary session. Some of the things that you touched on, very interesting. But Mr. J, for you public sector workers, you participated in this. And as Professor Ade talked about, this is not the first time. There's a lack of commitment from his experience in governments implementing some of these policies, even when they are proposed. Did you get any sense of a change in direction this time around?
Thank you very much, Alfred, and I'm happy to be here today. I was at the dialogue, as you indicated, and the sentiments that have been expressed here, it will be difficult here to say whether there is that political will or commitment to see through some of the fantastic and wonderful ideas and proposals that have come from this dialogue. We can only speak to our history as to what we've done in the past and how we have failed as a country to see through to some of these ideas and recommendations when they come up. Sitting at the dialogue, I observe one thing. I mean, the brilliant minds that we have in this country and the quality of the proposals that came at the end. It was just amazing. But over the years, even at the TUC level, we have consistently made suggestions and inputs to successive governments on what other alternative measures we can take to make sure we improve upon our fortunes as Ghanaians, for that matter, Ghanaian workers. Unfortunately, and the history is there, it's like whichever government in power have all the ideas, and therefore, despite the proposals and suggestions that come from other quarters, once it will not meet some political aspirations of the government in power, you are sure that it will be put aside. And what the government in power feels or believes that would advance its political agenda, which, and I feel that one of the major political agenda of any party in power should rather be to see to the improvement of the life of citizens. All the GDP growth we've had, what significant change has it brought in our economic life in terms of jobs, in terms of, and not just any jobs, but decent jobs that provide decent salaries and decent conditions of service. It is totally missing. So what we are hoping for is that there will be a change this time around. I think President Mahama have come to power at a time with a very, if I may put it, high political expectation and also goodwill of the people because of where we are coming from. And everybody, including us, are expecting that he will lead the way and provide the departure or that guidance, and I believe his appointees will not fail him because he will not be on the ground doing the work. But every step he has taken so far shows that he's ready to live with that goodwill that the people of Ghana have, because sincerely speaking, most of us have lost trust in our political class. We've lost trust in the political class. Yes, and in their ability to improve our fortunes. However, this is a golden opportunity, and we hope that the current government will not miss this opportunity to bring us back by at least, I indicated in my previous interview with you that if even at least 60% of some of the brilliant ideas and recommendations that have come, and as my senior Prof. Adai has indicated earlier, how do they put this and do the groundwork to make sure this is reflected in the policies? Maybe Tuesday we'll see what the finance minister is going to present, how the work of the NDPC is taken seriously, so that we have a plan and every government that comes continues.
He prepared the budget before the dialogue.
Well, well, I don't know how they are going to factor.
Not necessarily, but the process was on, and so some of these things, as I said, there is already a foundation. There are manifesto promises that, so you have the foundation.
So my understanding was that the dialogue was also part of the process.
The process.
Yes, exactly. That is what I heard.
What, putting together the budget?
Consultative process.
Well, so, but the point is that, Alfred, the point is that we must admit that it may not be perfect, but we must admit that this National Economic Dialogue has come out with something that, if we all agree, we can start from, use as a stepping stone, and rather commit ourselves. We can't solve all our problems in one day, or in 1 year, or in one administration. But at least, if we start the building blocks, take institutions that we've set up very seriously, work with their recommendations or by their mandates, and allow them to deliver, then we can rather be improving rather than always coming back to reset whenever there's a change. At least in every 8 years, we throw away everything that we were doing, we begin afresh, and we don't have all the resources to do these things. So what do? We go back and we borrow. If we are hard up, we go to the IMF, they bail us, we squeeze ourselves until things get better, and when we promise that we are going to start a new process and manage our affairs properly. Once things get better, government goes back to business as usual, spending anyhow, borrowing, and when we borrow also, we do not put these funds into productive ventures that will pay for itself, but the debt remains. Then at the end, the poor taxpayers come back. Workers have to sacrifice. Take COLA, no salary increase. Take 2%, take 4%, take 7%. Then our real wages keep coming down. No, I think this time we want to see a change. And let's hear what comes in the budget that we'll be able to determine if some of the wonderful ideas and proposals that were made have found their place in the budget. Then we now go to the implementation.
You took a considerably low wage increase because of the appeal for sacrifice. So what it says you want to see a change. What kind of change do you want to see on the part of the political class going forward?
Well, we want to change a commitment, first of all, to agreements and understandings we reach. For instance, the president has promised that, look, things are difficult. This is where we are. We need your help to bring things back to normal, which is not different from what he told us in 2013, 2014, coming along, which we did. But after the IMF program and all that, there was a new government. They also promised that we would work together to improve. We had a social partnership council. It never worked. So the first thing is we want to see a commitment and a realization of the basis for which we agreed to take, for instance, a low salary increase when we come out of the crisis. That is the first thing. The second thing is that we want government to make the improvement of the life of citizens a priority. Why do I say that? We think it's not a priority because when things improve, the actions and inaction of government appointees, and mostly you don't have the Jubilee House of Flagstaff even bringing appointees to order when they are engaging in practices and activities that are making the life of citizens difficult. Right? Our water bodies are being destroyed. Yes, organized labor say, President, step in, do something. Say something. We all know how serious the matter is. Civil society organization, everybody, religious, but trade, everybody came in. Say something. But it's business as usual. It's business as usual. And it's become an avenue. People want to enrich themselves through politics instead of focusing on what is important. And we think that if we do that, when we borrow, that's one other change we want to see. When we borrow, let's borrow not only to pay our debts. Let's begin to see how we can improve our productive sectors. I heard the president say he's going to push for more local participation in our extractive sector, for instance. So that
I don't want to disagree, but the first area of productivity is in the public service.
Well, I think we'll come to that.
Yeah. So
I think we'll come
that one is fundamental.
Yes.
That's where the real
I don't think we unions also do not disagree with that.
Yes.
We do not disagree with that narrative, and that is why I'm
I just wanted to make sure that you are not talking about the
Alfred has indicated we will come to that.
A major aspect of this conversation.
You see, as a country, I over the years feel that we always, when issues come for us to talk about, we do it to suit what we believe or we feel, to the extent that when you even notice or realize that, no, the position you have taken or the way you are going, you thought was the best. But maybe after listening to Franklin or to Martin or Prof, no, I think I have to revise my notes. We don't have that courage, okay, and ability. So we stick with what we think we know.
It's called political correctness.
Exactly. And we use the Goebbelian thing. They say, keep trumpeting it and people will believe it. So we keep trumpeting it. This is the way to go. This is the way to go. And then we fall in the ditch. And then we come out. A new government comes. And then we are told all the realities now begin to come up, then we start the cycle again. No. When we believe that productivity, workers, we are interested in productivity. Even at the workplace, among us, when you see that your colleague worker is not putting in as much as you, but at the end of the day, the two of you are receiving the same pay and the same thing. It's hurtful, it's painful. And as General Secretary, I speak for all workers. I speak for the one that is seen to be working serious and the one that is seen not to be working. And I also want fairness and justice for them. So you will not believe it, but among the workers, issues like even productivity and the rest is of great concern to us. But we have a problem and challenge, which if we get there, we will look at so that as a country, we just not speak based on our peculiar...
I'm not cutting you. I don't want us to go ahead.
There's a cultural...
I get your point. We'll get to it because we know in this country...
So those are
at some point... There's
a cultural element to this, inefficiencies from the public service.
But when we get there, I think...
We will address it because we know that at some point workers pretend to be working, government pretends to be paying something that looks like wages to them. But you've always emphasized the message in this victory for President John Mahama. It cannot be business as usual.
At all.
Something must change. This vicious cycle of resetting, it must end at some point, is it not?
Yes, absolutely. It must. It must. You know, hey, before I move on, I just got a message. They say Gregory Afuku says thanks. Thanks TV3 for the unrelenting advocacy that you guys have done well. Okay.
It is for the great
thanks. You know, most people kept quiet when the Kufuor was tormenting him, punishing him for the sins of Paul Afuku. Supposed sins, I mean, because they disagree, Afuku disagreed with him for his inability to account for £300,000. Kufuor. Anyway, it's serious. Yeah, so it cannot be business as usual. And it's good GM organizes forum, right? And, you know, in our history, even when you read Liman's biography, the one by Professor Ademesa, it shows that during Liman's time, we had such fora to discuss national issues, and even I think a champion's time. So our Ghanaian history is replete with such fora, right, to discuss the way forward. And when you read outside Ghana, I mean, you see in the Western world, they are always in consultations, always. I mean, the state institutions, before new laws are made, before taxes, even sometimes they use years to do the consultations. Yes, because, you know, the way businesses operate, if you want to change the tax, then they say, okay, so let's say, for example, in the UK, before they make major changes to their tax systems, they use years of consultations. Of course, sometimes there are exceptions, like the energy profit levy that is currently giving the oil companies in the UK a lot of headache. All right, the windfall tax, that's an exception. But generally, before they come out with major taxes and other policies, there are years of consultations. You look at the US, years of consultations. So I found it very strange when the MPP came out that it shows that the NDC doesn't have ideas. I said, this is laughable. It means that people are not even reading. And some of those people were talking, I thought they had lived abroad. You don't even need to live abroad. If you just Google, you see everywhere, to bring major change, you need to bring people on board. So even sometimes when you are very confident of what you are doing, remember that if the people behind you don't support you, you won't succeed. So you do some of these things to bring about a buy-in. Yes, I'm sure the earlier speakers have stated it. So please, for those who go around saying that the consensus, so the other one we had Senchi. This one, should we call it the Accra consensus or the International Conference consensus? Let's have the name so that it will be short. So for those doing that, let's stop. Because the more you say NDC doesn't have ideas, that's why it's engaged in consultations, then the more you portray your ignorance. It means that you are not reading.
To Senchi, also how many of those recommendations were implemented. And so what's the essence of doing that again? I think, Mr. J, that's another issue you Labour shared concerning.
The number that is implemented is another argument. I've said that the first one is you get people's buy-in and don't play. It's just like Ora, when President Mahama thought that people were coming to him, not just thought, when people were going to him with complaints. It's okay, let me set up a big body. And you see at the end, more than 2,400 emails, etc. And even till date, people are bringing in tapes and complaints, etc. So all we are saying, one word, Professor Ade used it, he said, social mobilization. We underestimate that. Social mobilization. And Dr. Tukono said that just involve people, because so it's like bouncing the ideas of them. Yes, when it comes to implementation, we know that's another kettle of fish. But let's not make the argument that because maybe implementation will be low, then it is not necessary. Anybody who does that, then it means that we are not learning from people who are ahead of us. Those who are ahead of us, they are always consulting, and sometimes simple things, you see years, right? So please, let's correct it. I mean, come up with stronger ideas than to just say that when somebody consults, then it means he doesn't have ideas. No, when you do that, it's a mockery. Please watch it. Don't do that. That's the first point.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so number two, you look at the ideas that are being floated, okay? Yes, improved agriculture, fight corruption. Good. Excellent. That's what we should be doing, right? Now, the question is, what will we be doing different about them? Because, look, when you read, Akufo-Addo came, he said he's going to change the Gadgisburg economy. Is that not so? In 18 months. We're here, it didn't happen, etc. So the emphasis should be on what we as citizens will do differently to make sure that this time it happens. Because, and I'm happy the president himself keeps referring to the mandate. Over 1.6 million gap. You know, Bawumia asked for a gap and he got one. More than 1.6 million, right? Between John Mahama and Bawumia in terms of the votes. So that tells you that Ghana has changed. We've changed at least through our voting patterns. So what else? And also, of course, it also means that the way we reason, okay, the way we are rationalizing things have changed. But the next change we are looking for is that, so how have we changed in terms of coming to support government to achieve? You heard Dr. Tukono mention again this cultural thing that we say, Abaye Juma, Wonsuya, Ochunifunazi, whichever variation you want. Yes, and you know, we've been mentioning this on this platform. So when are we going to change? Because you meet some of the people, and to be honest, you see that no, the excessive greed. It's just, I mean, we all would like some amount of money, some comfort, but you look at those we put in charge and the way they take everything for themselves. They are the first people who need to change. They are the first. Buzia complained about it, that in politics, what he had seen is that very greedy businessmen had become politicians. So you see the politician, he's not the politician that we all read about in Plato's Republic. Yes, the politicians we see are not the ones that Plato's Republic discusses, the philosopher king.
Yes.
The one who is not mean, he doesn't use their power for personal aggrandizement, the one who loves wisdom, the one who is forward-looking, right, brings the people on board, and is seeking the good of the ordinary man. Seeking the good of the ordinary man. So when you put all of this together, then you are left with one thing. Sometimes you see, yes, I know leadership is everything, or they say leadership is cost, right? But I think, you know, you can't...
Say, I said it first.
You said it first.
Yes. The whole world.
The whole
Google. No, it's actually a fact of that.
Leadership
is cost, and everything else is effect.
Yes, wants to attribute everything, they not homegrown. When you go home, when you go home, Google.
Okay, what's the program? We are
I'll try and Google it.
So, yes, so Mr. Okansi, yeah. So the point is that that thing, it's true to some extent, but you know, in the social sciences, you always find that you can't have just one adage answering everything. It's a mosaic approach. We need a mosaic approach. Citizens can't sit back and say, oh, well, we elected you, fix it. We elected you, fix it. You came and said you had the men, right? And they turned out to be station boys. No, you also get up. You see all the noise you've been making here. We organized Kumi Preku Reloaded. Some academics who should have known were trolling us. They didn't even appreciate that, look, it takes one man. Even if just 100 people attended the demonstration, it's about the message that citizens are waking up. And you find supposedly renowned academics trolling us that Kumi Preku is a failure. I said, hey, what is this?
So citizens must not sit down for 4 years and go and demand a change at the polls.
Absolutely.
The demand for things to be done differently must be on a daily basis, consistent.
Yes, just like we're doing here, daily. And then let's come to the fourth point I'm advancing, which is that, you see, these ideas, privatize, do this, market forces, please. When you read the literature, these neoliberal ideas, in simple terms, not to use big words, you see the privatization, let the market work, government has no business doing business. Please, these are false. Throw those things away. I have been reading a book for years now. They call it The Rise and Fall of the Neoliberal Order. Those things are failing. Check the developed countries. See how government is doing business. So don't come and sit, you hear radio, government has no business doing business. Who told you so? Who told you? Where have you checked? Where have you checked? So let's not hear those things. And so you hear because of that, hey, let's privatize ECG. No, maybe some aspects here, but ECG. Exactly. You can't. The rise and fall of the neoliberal order, you would find, look, structure adjustment. And I'm happy Prof even mentioned, we've been resetting now ever since. It's like the way they say, you go explain tire.
Divesting
exactly. We did that.
And it yielded nothing.
Exactly. When we should have insisted on strengthening the institutions, like Obama came and told us. Yeah, you read the literature, they're telling you it's about institutions. It's about bringing up the poor, okay, involving the weak in our societies, equal opportunity. That's why we say what? We do a welfare economy. So please, the people railing for privatization only, please, it's not working. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it's an eclectic approach. But if you ever come and say government has no business doing business, please, you are dead wrong. Then you are not checking our peers. Check the involvement of the U.S. government in the U.S. economy. Yes. Huge. Go to the UK. Google, you see BBB. BBB. What it means, you see the British government setting up a wealth fund. You know, they were criticized initially. You know, Thatcher came in. When you read the history, economic history, see how Thatcher came in and said, no. She was doing privatization. Yes, privatization. Today, check. You see calls on government and through efforts by the UK government to get back into business. And look at the Chinese.
Every single business.
Okay. Good. Excellent. I like that example. That's why I brought this other book, The Tyranny of Experts. You read it and you get a page where how the Chinese economists, all right, in the 20s and 30s, they said capitalism is ruinous. Capitalism is not good. And today, see where it's rich. Yeah, they said it. They said, no, we are not doing capitalism. It will be socialism. Government will be involved, etc. Right? So please, before you come and just tell us that it's all about privatization, market forces working, check again. I mean, do more comparative studies, because sometimes it's disturbing when you just hear those things. Oh, government cannot do it. It's only the private businessman. You know the motives of the private businessman.
Oh, but you know what? So,
exactly.
Why you put and it's good that you
I think that this one must be taken as a big issue, because I think that we must be very also careful how we throw things into the public area.
Yes, Prof, we're going to get there, because then that would lead us into the SOEs. Yes, because while we make this point, we need to juxtapose it with the state of the that's the publicly owned enterprises. Yes, so if we have those two positions, then we can better have a conversation. But I want to bring in Franklin Kojo.
Yes, I thought that he has been watching us for 2 years.
So because he was also neck deep into this dialogue as one of the speakers, before I get into that area that he spoke about, because it ties into some of the things that you have also touched on, I mean, all of you. Mr. Kojo, so in terms of doing things differently, especially because all my guests have talked about this not being the first time something of the sort has been done. But the demand is that at this point, we cannot continue to do the same things and expect different results, because the citizens are aware, much more aware than previously. We have spoken resoundly and continuously expecting a certain change in direction in terms of governance. What has to be done differently? Mr. Kujo.
Well, good morning to my good friends in the studio again. I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm sure Martin would disagree over the conceptualization of capitalism. What tends to happen is not capitalism, it's chronic capitalism, and that's corruption. Anyway, we can have that debate some other time. And I like the debate broached by the gentleman from the Workers' Union, issues around productivity. And I think that's one of the questions we've not answered as in this country quite well. Again, we'll get to that. You know, what we sought to do at the forum, don't forget I was given the task to present on the issues around good governance and maybe eliminating corruption. Well, of course, eliminating corruption is a big task, but I thought that we should reinvent, not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but probably change things a little bit. And I think all of you have been asking, what next? Martin just had the same question. We've had all these strategies, but what next? Which is why we thought at Imani that probably what we should be saying at that forum when dealing with corruption and maybe dealing with all this mismanagement is to take a critical look at the public sector reforms that we've had, public financial management systems we've introduced to curb corruption in this country. And if you take a critical look over the last 3 years, the question I've been asking myself, or we've been asking at Imani, is what exactly have we not been doing? We've been doing proof mark, we've done GIFMIS, we've done HAMSCAD, we've done almost all the acronyms that you know, probably with the exception of BOFRUIT. I'm sure very soon we'll get someone to come with the acronym BOFRUIT, right? And if you take a critical look at the system of all these public financial management systems, you realize that there's just one thing that runs through them: control. So the principal agent phenomenon, where the principal here being the government or the appointer, essentially believes that the bureaucracy or the civil servants would definitely do the delegated jobs. But they work within an environment where the public financial management systems they have to work with is a kind of command controls type of thing, right? Feeding this, you start a budget process, there's a budget review process, there's an audit process, there's all to ensure that you attain what we call the fiscal deficit, probably a good fiscal deficit outcome, right? And if you look at all the various levels, you see control. Do this, do that, do this, do that, do that. Maybe if we decided that we're going to invest this relationship, whereby the principal even clearly gives directives. Unfortunately, the agent has so much information, in this case, the bureaucracy. And they have so much information that it leads to what we call information asymmetry, which essentially means that the bureaucrat or the public servant here has more information than the agent, which is why you could see that sometimes when you go deep down into the corruption, should I call it a problem, you realize that civil servants are actually neck deep in it, but they have so much information, and they eventually lead the so-called political appointees into trouble. Take the case of the contract for sale. You recall that the man had so much information about contracts. He knew the ones that were sellable and the ones that were not. Now, in order to, meanwhile, he's working within the public PPA system that is supposed to be watertight. If we look at the PPA system, it's supposed to be watertight. Why do these things occur? And maybe it's about time we ask ourselves, what if we invest the relationship where we sort of motivated these civil servants or bureaucrats to understand that we actually have to co-create this whole idea of control or probably getting outcomes. What if we decided, for instance, that ministers and chief directors would voluntarily sign on to some sort of a framework where openness and transparency will be the bulwark, will be the yardstick, right? What it means is that the vision that we all have is that we want to eliminate corruption, at least reduce it to the barest minimum. Then secondly, we ensure that they openly commit to this process through a radical transparency approach, through data availability, because that's another thing. If you don't have the data, you can never fight what you can see. I don't know if some of you have seen the video I shared recently about Musk. Musk, you may like him or not, but if you listen to that video,
Elon Musk, yeah?
Elon Musk. If you listen to that video, it's just a 4-minute video. He was having an interview with a guy called Joe Rogan. And clearly he's saying that, look, there's this information asymmetry. You realize that checks are processed, but they do not have names. They do not have the origin of the checks are not known. But for years, the US government has been paying these bills. And when he was asked to estimate how much he thinks that hole actually has been created, he said it's about 100 billion. How do you digitally remove something like this? We've been at digitalization for a very long time. What are we doing differently? So I'm thinking that the third approach would be that, well, a second approach after having all these ministers and their agents, the bureaucrats commit to this radical transparency with open data. The third thing we should do is to have some sort of a hybrid system where we have town hall meetings, both fiscal and maybe virtual, and almost every aspect of procurement, performance, operations, milestones, tracking, and monitoring evaluation will be discussed. If you don't have information at that level, the next week you are allowed to fill that information. And we have this cyclical approach where eventually on the fourth level, we have citizens taking part as well. Citizens who want to be interested in the process, take part in this, what I call a collective, introspection of our budget and performance and what have you. And then fifth, every month we take a poll. I mean, every 6 months rather, we take a poll and find out which agents, which ministers, which bureaucrats are doing better, and then somehow praise them. I understand that somebody will be saying, "What about should I call it personal emoluments?" Because some of them have been crying for good pay. No, the problem is that this country we seem not to be able to fix the so-called bloated public service wage, and so we never ever have money to do anything. But in place of that, we can do this co-creation, do this whole thing, and decide that those who actually excel at the end of the year, we have some sort of performance contract with them, and they are publicly awarded by the president and maybe the minister for labor, and we acknowledge these persons. We think this approach, when invest rather than the top-down approach control system, may probably use some results. And by the way, this is not necessarily new with us. Rwanda has done something similar. In Singapore, they've done something similar. In Rwanda, they call it the Himihigo concept, which essentially meant that they borrowed from the traditional system of accountability, where people went to war, warriors went to war, and they committed or they promised that they'll excel. If they didn't excel, they came out publicly to be shamed or to shame themselves. When this performance contract model was introduced in Rwanda, in 10 years, from 2006 to 2016, Rwanda's economy grew from almost 3.2 billion to about $8.7 billion, right? I mean, they almost have poverty from about 67% to about 37%. And as I speak, between 2007 and 2009, the turnover of mayors, they have something called district mayors. Over 75% of them had to be replaced voluntarily, because you yourself will realize that you've done well or you've not done well. And so with time, they started introducing issues around corruption, all this monetary evaluation. And then within time, the whole country was immersed in Imihigo. Someone will say, well, Rwanda is not the country to copy. I'm not talking about the political systems in place right now. I'm talking about the system that has been enhanced, accountability system that has been enhanced. They are using with stellar results. The World Bank has written about it. You only need to Google and see it. Of course, in Singapore, they have done much more. In fact, this year, for instance, public servants, even at the get-go, are getting about $300 benefits, which they can use. As you progress, if you do well, you get $500. You know why this outcomes work? In 2018, Singapore was able to return a budget surplus, right? That every citizen got $300 being paid back into his or her account. So much to talk about meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty in public office. So when all of you are asking for what should change differently, maybe we should try this approach, which we call revitalizing the economy through stewardship and ethical transformation. It is the word is stewardship. If we focus on stewardship rather than this command control type of system, maybe we achieve results. And that has been the thrust of my presentation at the NED. Unfortunately, I think for good reasons, I'll tell you later. But this is going to be form part of the final report.
Interesting. So you see, all those countries that you referenced, they have something in common, and that's what Professor Stephen Adair mentioned in passing. A certain continuous form of development where there's no obstruction, so-called, because of an election. There has to be a change in the developmental direction of the country. So Rwanda, over time, you've had Paul Kagame be in power for so long, so there's a certain vision he's pursuing. which is not obstructed by a change in government. In Singapore, you cannot. No, I was just maybe when I end, you just answer the question.
Sure.
In Singapore as well, there is a certain vision in motion, which is not obstructed by, or which was not obstructed by elections for a very long time. He says maybe when we have a party in power for 20 years, with a vision being implemented over that time, maybe with a change in the leadership over that 20-year period. Let's try that as well.
Well, let me correct it. I wouldn't say that there should be one president for the 20 years.
Not one president, but there will be a change in presidents, but a system that runs over a period.
Regime after regime, which is different from... yeah.
Well, I'll answer quickly to that. Someone also suggested that, well, because Rwanda went through a brutal, should I call it genocide, we probably should wait for our thing. I don't think that is the way to go at all. And of course, there are examples on the continent that evoke the kinds of development that we have that also are modeled on the 4-year, 5-year cycle. There's Botswana, there's Mauritius, right? We can talk about being stewardship towards minerals. So stewardship in this case can be approached with different, can be applied differently. As Botswana has given stewardship, has given the meaning to stewardship to its governments. And today they are benefiting strongly. They're in the position to renegotiate with all the big guys. And my good friend is now the minister for, I think, the mineral sector. Forgotten her name, Bogolo, by the way. And she's doing amazingly well. They have a 4-year, they have elections, don't they?
Yes,
so you can take the stewardship model and apply. If I travel to Rwanda, and for 2 hours, I see street life from Kigali, from the center of Kigali to an outward of Kigali for 2 hours. Don't I like to see the same thing here? Has anything to do with the leadership of the country? In the case, this example of Imihigo in Rwanda, the elections, by the way, that's why I told you the turnover of local mayors, district mayors, was over 75% in 2 years.
Okay.
The point really is that, look, at the end of the day, you ask yourself, what outcomes do you want? What do you really want to achieve for yourself? So you can have this within, if you like, a mono-unitary or a democratic system. In any case, it's America. We're suggesting that this same system do not probably, well, America probably will be the outlier. But everywhere they've had elections, even in Hong Kong, before the Chinese took over, it was clearly a very prosperous country. So I'm not one now to replace elections with anything. Just to say that, yes, I identify the fact that Rwanda may be totalitarian, maybe halfway, but look at the results they are getting, right? And I suspect that all of them have not come through caution. I don't think so. This one, for instance, has been a bottom-up approach as a local system that has been enhanced. Can we do the same? I think we should just give it a try. And you never know. Human beings respond to incentives, right? Look, at Imani, we started something called the Inspirational Public Sector Leadership Awards. We assess leadership every year and then award the top 5 and the bottom 5. With time, we realized that was a top-down heavy approach. What if we work with the system to realize that there are certain goals we can co-create and work together and then find a means of participating in it? And then it's a reward system that actually says, oh, you've done well. Other than those meaningless awards, you see people carry all sort of funny citations, big citations, but they mean nothing. If all those things are attained by having this inverse relationship between the principal and the agent, why not? By the way, my good friend Sangu Dele has enhanced our system, our suggestion, and it's written a nice article as well. You should look out for it.
Indeed.
Essentially, we are calling it at Imani, revitalizing the economy through stewardship and ethical transformation. Maybe that may be different. Maybe let's try that and see how quickly our local governance, work well. Look, I got a call from a guy who believes who have been the best at the vetting at the district chief executive level in one of the regions. And I know that he's a good guy. Now the guy calls me and says, oh, boss, I came tops, but could you speak for me so that I could get a job? Because I know my other 2 contenders, because the shortlisted 3, have ways and means. And I said, ways and means, what do you mean? So they know people, I said, well, if you manage to come tops, maybe the system is good. But see how frustrating he's going to look. If he doesn't get a job, he feels he's been done by him. But there's another vetting that's supposed to take place at the national level. We don't have to do these things to ourselves. If this were done at the center and left there and co-created, the gentleman will have no need to call me. You understand? The same way the president will have no means to fire him simply because he doesn't smile towards people. He doesn't say cheer. He doesn't say this and this. I mean, those kinds of things we need to do our way. We have to work with performance indicators.
And in fact, that leads me to the next question, because during your presentation, you talked about, you proposed that there should be key performance indicators for the ministers and appointees of this administration. You proposed to the president during your presentation at the dialogue. I mean, in what form should these KPIs come? I ask this because this is not the first time we're going on that path. You recall that Dr. Anthony Akotose, who was then appointed as the minister in charge of monitoring and evaluation by the Akufo-Addo administration, also had that charge of, and we asked the questions as to whether there were KPIs. We are told that that was his mandate, to monitor and evaluate the performance of the ex-Wild administration's appointees. We saw what happened. So how different is this?
Except, of course, it was not co-created. You know, when you go and sit somewhere and design your performance indicators and hand them over to the people to work with, they probably also need to understand the system. What we are proposing, even though it's related to just public financial management, we are saying that these performance indicators and milestones have to be co-created and accepted and agreed upon. It will be obvious to you that you haven't met it. Nobody will have to tell you. But that's not to say that we don't need monitoring and evaluation. You know, one of the things, it's a brilliant question you ask, because it's also the question about whether our governments actually respect monitoring and evaluation. Right from Nanado's time, who was it that was supposed to be in charge of public sector reform? From Sapumafo, right?
Yes.
With the budget he had, well, the only good thing he did was to edit a policy paper the NDC had prepared, the previous NDC had prepared. That was all that office ever did. No wonder it was shut down after spending almost 8 million Ghana cedis, or is it $8 million on that office. But there's another thing. That office was never respected. If it was respected, it would have been a cabinet level, should have been given a cabinet level recognition. You know why? Like Musk is doing. People say Musk has no mandate. He's not crossing heads with some cabinet ministers in America. Maybe yes. But the reason why he comes to cabinet meetings is because he comes to report the president that this is what I found. This is a hole I found. Systems don't talk to each other. So can we have the Minister for Communications make sure that all ministries are coordinating so that when we send our salaries or the controller, we know exactly what people are being paid for. Maybe it will lead to revitalizing or changing this whole concept of the way we reward people here. The so-called single spine thing. You know, the gentleman from Labour was saying productivity is a problem. Why should I have a degree and he also has a degree? I have a degree in maybe, I'll not like to use something else, but simply maybe just a human resource degree. And he has a degree in accounting. He breaks his back to do financial analysis. And I probably see that the whole day doing nothing because I have no job. Why should we be paid the same amount? You understand? Over time, with such a system, we'll start seeing those who are really working and those who are not. So all we are saying is that we are provoking an idea. Now look, can you rethink the model you are dealing with? So the Ministry for Monetary Evaluation was shut down the next time, not because Anthony did not do well, because the president did not respect that ministry. Tony Edu used to be the same person who used to write to ministers at the time, and he confessed openly on Joy FM. And he writes the letters to them, nobody gives the toss, they don't mind him. Until that ministry or that power is given some level of autonomy, works at the, giving some level of power, recognition, works at the cabinet level, liaises with the cabinet secretary and the president's secretary. Nothing will change. That's why I find it laughable in a way that the minister who was appointed for public sector will achieve zero, nothing, because she has no power to direct officers to answer her. They will not mind her. If the President John Mahama has raised that office to the level of a cabinet minister, she can come and say, okay, we probably want to work with a co-created idea. And working with this idea, this minister, even though he's reported that, oh, there's been growth in maybe his sector by some 10%, actually it's 4%. Because if you netted these challenges up, you get 4%. You have a minister like that, you give that recognition, you respect the process. That's what we are talking about. Look, there's another thing which we've been asked to support. And by the way, we've done that already, which has to do with the value for money ombudsman. We'll talk about that later. I can't share that because I think it's still working in the process.
We'll talk about that.
The issue I'm really saying, all I'm saying here is that there's a reset that we need to all be part of. And by resetting, maybe you can try this model. It works. I see it work. We'll try and pilot it. And I'll personally reach out to President Mahama to see whether we can pilot it in one way or the other. Control stewardship rather than hammer and a nail. Control. It doesn't really work. Thank you.
Stewardship. Now, because you talk about productivity, that leads us to the next issue about the state-owned enterprises. We saw the presentation by the finance minister on day one of the dialogue. He says almost all the SOEs are in red. And I showed the data, which we're going to put on the screen in a bit. A number of them. There's been the proposal on how to turn around the fortunes of the SOEs, because we cannot keep pumping state resources into a basket full of holes. Something must change. Is a private participation the way to go, or a total privatization, or we should just allow the SOEs to be as they are, because the public sector workers say it is the politician that's the problem, because they keep appointing people who don't have the right knowledge to head these institutions?
Well, it's not necessarily a question about not the right persons heading these institutions. It's the system they are working with. Look, before the current VRA, right, guy will be appointed, there were house from within, from the workers. Some of them reached out to me. And I told them, look, I'm good friends with both people who are competing. There's nothing I can do about this. But they had legitimate concerns. They were complaining, oh, this person has done this person has done that. And all of them had to point to authority. All of them had to point to basically power, just power. Some pointed to the fact that one person was misappropriating the public system, public financial, the procurement system has been shortchanged, the person is still there, and all kinds of things. And I said to myself, how are we going to fix this? There's always a question about personalities and their cronies and their arrangements and all these, what I call, they have all these fiefdoms they've created within institutions. It's a huge problem. So when I talk to my friends, it looks as if they are not being part of the process. That's what I saw. That's what I saw. He thinks that he's part of the process from day one. He has over 25 years experience. Why are they not being listened to? And you see it through almost all the public state-owned institutions. I met with my good friend Randy not long ago, and the things he said to me, that I saw almost everything before the president even mentioned it in the State of the Nation address. But I know that there were friends of mine before Randy came as well. And I have to ask questions. How do we fix this thing? Because getting along the path, maybe Randy may go through something similar, even though he's probably now trying to clean house. You understand? Before you see some minister say, some person is saying, oh, do this or do that for us. That's always been the problem. So when the workers were not carried along, they started asking questions. You see, so all these things you see are all related to why? Why don't we have basic performance indicators? Why? Why are people not seeing themselves as part and parcel of the process of managing state enterprises? Maybe, yes, it will change. Martin, I'm sorry. We've been at it for many, many years. And in Latin America and and even Asia have learned painfully that state-owned enterprises were poorly managed. That's why Latin America decided to change course. Even India changed course and realized that having some private sector participation actually works. And by doing so, they built all these monsters we are dealing with right now. Monsters, I mean positively, who are all over the world and are setting up all kinds of institutions, making developing countries like ours part of their Leviathan, what I call the hegemon. But they build systems. They study the systems and realize that state-owned enterprises have never worked. If you read Martin Meredith's book, you realize Nkrumah's problems started with the fact that almost all the state institutions, you yourself were saying it, people do as they pleased. Maybe my stewardship model may work if we wanted to reinvent the wheel. Maybe not. Maybe what will work if you really value hard currency, hard cedi, hard dollar that we are putting into these state-owned enterprises and returning zero. You think twice. If it's your money, would you use it that way? I think at the end of the day, that's the question we should be asking ourselves. You know, there's the tragedy of the commons principle. What belongs to you you tend to take care of. What belongs to everybody tends to fall into disrepair. Everybody wants to benefit at the expense of the state. So if you don't have those controls, or maybe an imihigo, or probably a reset the way we want to see it at the stewardship model, maybe let's try that as well. But otherwise, until these things really change, until we say that, look, it is hard capital, it is hard currency, that somebody needs to pay for it, nothing will work. And as I said, if I had my way, 95% of those SOEs will be buried and resurrected after 3 days, after injecting in them some real sense of private sector thinking, not necessarily ownership, participation as well. By the way, all those things we are saying must be done with data. You see, most of the time we don't do it with data, which leads to the problem. Look, this problem on the African continent. Let me just give this example. This problem on the African continent, where governments fail to give real data when a private sector person is coming into the system, is problematic. Water in the UK, similar challenges in Tanzania, but they did not get all the real data of what the public pipe system was in Tanzania, Jerusalem, when they were. It's the same thing here. We don't never get all the data. If we got all the data, we'll be able to reinvent the wheel. And by the way, like I said, at the end of the day, we should be careful. I understand that there's some private sector participation to take place in the legislative subsector. Then I ask myself, I've gone through all the papers I've seen again. What did PDS really do wrong? PDS necessarily did not do that wrong. They achieved some results. But because of that chronic capitalist arrangement, that led to some issues about the insurance guarantee and all kinds of nonsense. Unfortunately, that's what led to it. So now that they want to go about it, I'll press the minister. Have you seen the data that people, the Philippines actually worked? We got some real value if they were allowed to work. But because of people sharing 10%, 20%, there was an open fight. And all of a sudden, the thing broke. And we are blaming the system, the participator. But we are not blaming the system, the process. You understand? So we need to work with data. But having said that, if I had my way, I'll privatize ECG without blinking at all. I'll sell the
You privatize ECG without blinking? No.
I want to talk.
Thank God. ECG is a cash cow. How can you handle that? I can manage ECG. What are you talking about? How can you do that? It's corruption. It's a systemic issue. You had Dubik Mama under declaring income, and when he was asked, he said, "Oh, under declaration is not a crime." And we are sitting here.
When he was struggling,
so let's buy
Martin, can I give you another example?
Mr. Kudo, and then I'll come in with Professor.
Quick example.
Yes.
So the same Dubik, and I saw it myself. I was given full answers. Yes. There's a whole presentation done for my own benefit alone. By one of these powerful accounting agencies. And I saw the problem. And I said to myself, this problem of ECG would never end. The very day he told me that the very day he leaves, that's the very day he denies the official appointor what he wants. And that's what he did.
I see.
He didn't want again to be part of this whole Kululu, so do this.
But this one, he participated. No, frankly. He benefited. He fully participated. Please.
He was empty.
Hold on. One last point. Martin.
Yeah,
we can go on and on. My own de facto board chairman at Imani, Tono Tinjesi, used to be chairman of ECG when John Mahama was in power the first time. He said to John, "I'm sick, so I want to leave." And I asked him, "Are you really sick, Tony?" Then no, I'm not sick. I'm not physically sick. I'm just sick of all the backbiting, the kululu, the corruption, procurement to buy cables lasting of $1 billion when he knows that those cables were just about 400 million Ghana cedis, right? So that this kinds of thing transcends every government. You understand? So how do we fix it? Let's be there and be saying that, oh, change the person, change that you can bring even. What's it called? Somebody said that if Satan had reformed, we would be sitting by Jesus Christ by now. The question really is that, what do we really want to do? Maybe let's try our concept, stewardship, and let's see if it doesn't work. Then we have got the country.
Yes, because all the procurement issues we talk about it's part of the system. The systemic failures that we talk about.
Just apply the law. Don't we
all of that.
By the way, I'm not asking
but let me bring in Prof. Sade. Yes, frankly, hold on a bit, because I think that we all acknowledge that there's a problem. It's how to solve it that you differ. Because you think that, yes, for you, if you had your way, about 95% of the state-owned enterprises have just been buried, so that you privatize them. Professor Stephen, I want to bring you on this, because it's all a matter of productivity. How do we turn around the fortunes of the SOEs? Because as we have seen per the data, it confirms what the finance minister said. All is not well. And just as Franklin said, if it was our own private company, we'll probably pay more attention to it. So what's being done wrongly that has to be done differently?
Well, I think that there are so many issues involved. Let me say that I work only in the public sector until I reach 60 years.
Until you reach 60?
Yes. Yeah. I work in the Ministry of Finance. I worked in the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, then called Capital Investment Board, for 12 and a half years before I joined the Commonwealth Secretariat, but it's International Public Service as an economist. And I worked with the UNDP for 11 and a half years, public service. And I came back to Ghana, worked in GIMPA for 9 years, and I reached 60. One of the interesting things about GIMPA is that actually I was recruited when President Rawlings was in power. But in 1 year he lost. I mean, the NDC lost. And then I reached 60 on 14th December 2008. That was when there was a change in the government. So everybody sees me as, as if I'm NPP. I'm neither NPP or NDC. I just happen to be someone who worked for. So first of all, I work.
I'm sure maybe it's because of the consistency of your views sometimes.
Well, no. My views.
But Akufo-Addo won't likely give GRA board check with
let's keep focused. Let's not digress.
Akufo-Addo will give such a decision to a new
Don't go there because I don't want to defend myself. If you want me to defend myself, I'll tell you why I got the job. First of all, it was not a job. Let me correct it.
Yes.
A chairmanship. This is where some of you have encouraged corruption. Chairmanship as if it's a gift. I was a chairman of GRA for 15 months. Apart from my sitting allowance, I didn't take even a bicycle. And my 4,000, only at sitting, not even a monthly one, was more of a cost to me than to it. So some of us have been public servants all our life, and we know. I'm quite now on hindsight. You know that somebody was appointed as chairman 2 weeks before me. I've forgotten his name, the one who was supposed to have...
the maritime or something, the one who
had many
ACs, 12 or 40 ACs in one house.
And for some reason, all Ghanaians rose up against that one, and he was withdrawn.
Yes.
I would say it in public if you want, sad to say, but let me say, people came to my house and knelt and begged me to come because they were looking for a person of integrity. Okay. And I thank God for that. Good. That a government would send, and I will mention the name of her, and come and kneel and beg that, it's a national situation. Will you come? And I would, whether even it's the devil, come and say that there's a national crisis. We want a person of integrity. Of course, my own integrity also means that I lasted for 15 months, not 2 years. Okay. So don't let us go there. Let us come to the issue there.
You've addressed
at
the appropriate time. You've addressed it,
yes,
but not now.
Let's come to
not now.
No,
it's a very interesting area.
Because for me, therefore, anybody, that is why, for example, just a little side, I was in Nkranza, we mentioned about advising the Anglican University. And an evening, I get a call from Pakusia Misa that I need you in Akosombo. The following morning, I had to rush, pay my own fare, take a plane and come. Why? There are some of us distinguish between a national duty because maybe by God's grace, we don't need either Akufo-Addo or Mahama to survive. So if you are in that position, we thank God for it. I mean, not everybody is in that position. Yeah. So some of us can choose what we want to do and all for Ghana. But on this issue of the public sector, I think that it's not an issue of ownership, but what comes with the ownership. The reason is this: governments after governments will not appoint people, sometimes of the right caliber, will not allow them the liberty to manage it and then hold them accountable. And in any system, that these three things are there, you will not have results. So that is not an issue of ownership. When I took over Gimpa is a public institution. People sometimes think that, but some of us decided to say that we will do what we think is best for us. We refused to allow political interference, which I was blessed, I must say, because I was appointed under the NDC 1 year. Actually, the Labour will not like it, but we dismissed 40%. A university, that time with 40 lecturers, had 290 support staff, a dumping ground for everybody's nephew and other things. Yeah. We separated them.
So you fired 40%
yes. And we went through
of the staff that
yes,
you
with a trade process yes, with the trade union, yeah. And then we paid 5 weeks for every year of service. And then, but let me tell you, I can actually mark it on the wall or that if NDC had won the election of 2000, my role in Ghana, Gimpa, would not have lasted, because when they were separated, it was the election time, which it was a good timing, because I was called by Austin Gami, then Minister for Labour, and says that the government wants you to recall them back. I said, no fears.
Recall the staff you had laid
off. Yes. And I said, I mean, we have, yes.
Nephews.
Yes. I said, recall them back. I said, no, I won't. And therefore, I knew that my job was online. Of course, there was a change in government. And you know, when there was a change in government, sorry that I'm bringing this personal one.
It's good.
But it illustrates. Yes. When the new government came.
That's why I wanted to prove further.
No. Yes.
So the personal one.
Exactly. Yes. When the new government came, and somebody showed me the letter they were written to they got 83 complaints about me for me to be fired by the NPP government, but they took so long to settle. It took them about 2 years. By the time they settled, by God's grace, we had shown so much result that firing you, and also the law of Gimpa had been changed. The president no longer appointed it had to be by the council.
So that fits into the conversation about who is appointed.
Yes, who is appointed, the rules, and holding people accountable for that. And we cannot have a situation whereby there's a state organization, and because of one or any of these reasons, you are making a huge loss after loss, and you remain still the state subsidizing. That, let me tell you, we are not doing us a favor. Take toll. How many people work in toll? Altogether, I don't know, do you have an idea of how many people work in toll? Let's say that 200. Lose 200 people, and you see how much government spends per head. They are shortchanging Ghanaians. It's either you allow it to be run efficiently, and it can be done in the public sector. Yeah. But there are certain conditions that will allow it to run. Whether our governments, and here I'm not talking about one government, will allow such to happen, which happens in other countries. Yeah. That is the issue. Yeah. Because a public sector in Rwanda, you say you go and then chop. You may have your head chopped. That's to put it there. So it's a question of our whole governance system, the interference on what people can get away with. Then comes also, I think that Doc mentioned it, and about the culture of Aban Juma. Again, I believe that the Ghanaian would respond if they know that they cannot get away with it. Yeah. Because after all, when the Ghanaian works in other jurisdictions, they do so well.
The Ghanaian workers outside are the best. Everywhere you go.
So therefore, that is not the issue. And in my own little place of Gimpa, within 9 years, if you take about turnover as an indication of productivity, we increase productivity 20 times, 2,000%.
2,000%?
Yes. In other words, and we ended up to be the only public university which is not subvented. And interestingly, when I was leaving, we had as many people employed in Gimpa as the one inherited. But each one of them was earning substantively. And a lecturer in Gimpa, I was proud to say, was earning 50% above a lecturer in Legon. So it's a question of whether we will allow the system to work. And there, let me conclude by quoting myself, leadership is cause. Everything else. And the leadership is the president with his cabinet. And then when it comes to the organization, who is the chief executive? And the board, and they are being allowed to take place. Let me conclude by giving, I won't mention the name of the organization, because it's a private sector organization, which I happen to have the privilege of being on the board 6 years ago. 3 years, they were making losses because the corruption, the inefficiency, the attitude, which removed the chief executive. There were, I think, 6 directors. All of them, within the short time, were changed. They moved from a loss-making, a small company. First year, after that, 1.4 million. The second year, 6.5. The third year, 24 million. And they are in the fourth year.
Was it a financial institution?
I won't mention. And the fourth year, which is this year, they are projecting to come with 40 million. The same organization.
That was making losses.
Making losses. So therefore, if we will allow the system, and let me confess that I don't, at this moment, have the confidence that our government, even the new government, will be able to deliver on that system. But if they do, I will be thanking God for John.
That system of having political appointees who may not have the right.
Yes, but oftentimes, even when they are, it's not so much. But oftentimes they do have it. For example, I don't think that those who have been removed and those who are being replaced, if you look at their CV, they are not qualified.
So then what's the problem?
But the question is whether they will be allowed the room to work, the performance indicators held accountable, and then be judged, not allowed to get away with it. So there are
the accountability and no interference.
No interference.
So that they...
And the people being strong enough to say that when you appoint me, don't appoint me, because if you appoint me, I won't allow you to interfere. Because
you are telling President Mama not to appoint you.
Yes, because
he has given his time.
If you
appoint me, don't interfere.
You can't interfere.
Give me my performance.
No, but tell me this is what I want you to do.
If I do it,
quite there, I will hold you accountable for results. But to come tomorrow and come and say, Doc, she's a party member, put him here. No. I says no. And that's for me. That's
what happened at GRA.
No comment.
but you see that.
But GRA, I wasn't a chief executive. I was a board chairman.
So you acknowledge that there's a problem of underperformance.
Oh yes.
Losses.
You, Gaganchwa, even trade union want to take me on about productivity. But I said I don't accuse you. The productivity is a fact.
So no, it's a fact. Who is the direction
so you see,
of how we are making the argument?
I'm going to come to you. That's the next step. So if you say that you, for instance, have the political appointees who may even have the right qualities, there's no interference. But then also
must be held accountable.
Men must be held accountable. How about ensuring productivity? How do the public sector workers themselves also come in? Because you might have the right leader, not having the right
No, the public sector, for me, here, let me come to the defense of the civil servants. When you go to a department, the average Ghanaian, unfortunately, is within this culture that Dr. was talking about. About human rights. But let me tell you, the same Ghanaian, when the head of the department comes to work on time, expect you to do certain work. And also he's given the right to hire and fire. And not say that, when I came to Gimpa and I said that people must leave, they said that we are public servants. And I said, please show me your letter of appointment. None of your letters of appointment said you were a public worker. You said that you are appointed to this office, you can leave by giving notice for 30 days, and you can. I said, where does it say that you are a public servant, that you are assured of your job? Any system that does not allow the one in charge the right to hire and fire, because you know the right to hire and fire is not absolute. Because if you dismiss somebody unjustly, he will go through
Labor Commission.
So when we say right to hire and fire, that means that, you know, arbitrary, Steve, they say it doesn't like your face, go. If you take that one from the leadership, you are going to have a system not work. But at the end of the day, leadership is horse. Whom you put there, the conditions on and other things, when you go to, there are certain. Let me give an example. I think that to a large extent, the transformation in DVLA on the Busia, was tremendous. I mean, it wasn't a perfect example, but it was a public, DVLA is not a private institution. So, probably he could have done more if there were no interference. I don't know the details there. So, the public sector can be made efficient with the right leadership, right condition, and reduced political interference. And then the leadership being held accountable. How can you be in an organization, make lawsuits, and then they pay? Even some of them have the audacity to pay themselves bonus. Bonus out of a loss. I mean, come on, please, let's go on to another person.
Dr. Tono, and I'll come to you, Mr. J, but Dr. Tono, because it still comes, he points out the problem of political leadership. Now, wait a second. Wait. The political appointments and then also the leaders of these SOEs. We know that some of them, if not all, become avenues where you, the political parties, have people who follow you being appointed there. Professor Dare is pointing to that as one of the challenges that contributes to the SOEs making losses in some cases. So that if you have a leader, just because of the political affiliation, and may not have the right kind of qualities being appointed, and then he or she also appointing other people into the SOEs who are just members of a political party and not having the right qualities to work in those SOEs, what do you expect?
So, Alfred, first of all, let's demystify this general notion that the politicians are mostly not experts in certain areas and cannot be professionals and cannot be technocrats. Mostly those of us who are politicians are technocrats who find space in the political system. There's this general notion that, oh, because he's a politician, you don't put politician there, you don't put politician there. But there are technocrats who are politicians. There are people with the requisite skills and knowledge set to be able to lead the change management that we so seek in these institutions. And so I agree with Professor Ade that, look, leadership is always the cause. And anybody who has sat in my class before, I don't miss a lecture without talking about leadership, because I believe that leadership is what drives change management. So all the state institutions that are running at a loss, the solution is not privatization. The solution is not just selling it off, divesting it. And data, yeah, I strongly disagree. And data is replete with evidence that state institutions that were divested under the guise of not doing well have mostly, in time past, have not survived under private sector management. So it was not necessarily because it was being managed by government. And there are studies that have shown that those institutions that fail are not necessarily because they were state-owned institutions. And across the world, there are state-owned institutions that are doing well. And again, if lessons from the United States of America is anything to go by, that should tell you that the market economy, running a purely sole market economy, competitive market economy, doesn't work. And when there was the credit crunch in America, Obama had to take the bull by the horn and implement a socialist market system to be able to bring America back onto its feet. Now, if you look at most of the businesses that are doing well in America, the state has interest in them.
Exactly.
And go to the UK, most of the businesses that are doing well, the states have interest in them. And the Chinese have moved away from the purely communist, system to a socialist market system, which is driving the Chinese economy now. As we speak, when you assess the Chinese economy vis-a-vis the US economy, in terms of nominal GDP, Chinese is the second biggest economy. But when you adjust at purchasing price parity, China is the biggest economy in the world. You understand? And how did they do that? They did that by targeting the various commercial sectors of the economy. So government invests directly in every single business. Are you aware that as part of the international relations policy of the Chinese people, they go out to do commerce. The commerce is driven by government initial investment and government monitoring. And so the Chinese embassy in Ghana, they are here purposely for trade interest and business interest. Here we are as a country, even our embassies across the world do not have trade attaches. And our trade attaches, when we send them, they are people who do not even have the requisite skills to identify opportunities of trade and all those things. And so this whole business of always going for the low-hanging fruit, so let's privatize, let's privatize. It has never saved us. No, let me even cite a very common example that we can all relate to. Ghana Telecom. You recall when we were fighting against the sale of Ghana Telecom to Vodafone. And the government said, oh, it was only privatization that could save Vodafone. What has happened to Vodafone now?
Well, there's a proposal of some level of private sector participation.
Exactly.
Not so much about the whole privatization.
And that is the socialist market system. And so you have a system where government has controlling interest or somewhat an interest, but there is private participation. So that as the private protects their capital interest, the public also protects the social interest of the business. Otherwise, you would run into troubles. And so all this analysis of the state institutions and all the institutions that have been mentioned here, particularly ECG, I cannot fathom why ECG should be making losses. I know that because of the systems they are running and the fact that it is driven by tech, it is driven by technology, and its foundation is in zeros and ones, there would always be ways that people can balance the zeros and ones to reduce efficiency so that they can make personal gain. It is there. But let's do a proper assessment of the energy provision value chain and see where the problem is. I, from where I sit, my discovery is that the challenges of UCG is mainly from the recovery and the collection of the bills.
And the waste.
And you see, the waste will come from maybe the system, the transmission systems and all that. There will be theft also along the line. But if the recoveries are efficient enough, I verily tell you that UCG will not be losing. If you look at our energy cost, the price of energy in Ghana, and you look at the build-up, and you look at the potential, the energy that we produce, and the potential losses that will be made along the transmission lines. I mean, because they are conductors. The conductors, depending on the quality of the conductors that you use, you may be losing a lot of energy along the line. But the main issue is recoveries. And so, for example, if we want to fix the problem of ECG, and the problem is recoveries and the collections, why don't we look at bringing in private participation at the recoveries level? So, for example, let's segment this country into maybe 5 or 6 segment, because then you can also give it to one country, one company like we gave to PDS. Let's look at divesting it through a competitive tender, getting private participation in the collection process, so that when ECG takes the power from Gridco, then they offload the power to the private person who is supposed to do the collection. That private person is now bearing the responsibility of paying for the energy that has been supplied to the private person.
Now, the private person, because it's also driven by profitability interest, would make sure that there will not be any losses. People are not stealing the power. You understand? Yeah. And when anybody steals power, they will take more aggressive measures in dealing with the individual. And so when you do that, and there's private parts, for example, let's say Accra Central, you are giving it to Messrs. Kwebu Company Limited to do the collection, and you are giving the Accra Central 50 megawatts of energy. All you need is for Kwebu Company Limited to produce, to pay equivalence of the 50 megawatts that you are supplying to it. So Martin Kwebu will now implement a management system that will make him efficient and will not run losses. You understand?
I do. But
so the work and the assets of ECG is maintained by the state. ECG is managed the way it's supposed to be managed. If there are any staff of ECG that, I mean, for example, if Martin Kwebu is coming into that business, he may not have all the technical competences with all the staff and all that. So there may be other staff of ECG that will be required to perform the service under the company. And because they are operating under Kwebu Company Limited, Martin Kwebu will make sure that you are not just working with them and you are redundant and you are not doing anything, but you are productive, so that he will be able to make his profit line. And so I think that this whole issue about state-owned agencies making losses is not about just the fact that they are being managed by the state, but also most importantly about management. I think that there is a management problem in our institutions, and they should be looked at individually and not severally. And that is why some of the agencies will posit profit, but some would also posit loss. You understand? For example, I cannot by any stretch of imagination imagine why Cocoa Board should be making losses. But again, I have decried this lack of efficient management at Cocoa Board for the past few years. And most of the management decisions that have been taken in the past few years is mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling because you are running an institution that thrives on crop production. So if you are producing less, it means that you will not make your money, you will lose. So what it means simply is that you focus more on the agronomy of the production, so that the farmer is able to produce enough crops so that you can go and sell and make your profits. But if you are not investing in the agronomy and you are investing in other irrelevant areas that do not drive the productive sectors of what you run in, you are going to run at a loss.
But why is that not happening?
Prof, please.
Why is it not happening?
Please, Prof. So I am decrying what has been the case in the past. Okay. Because there were times that Cocoa Board was making profits. Yeah. We have seen that in this country. In the last 8 years, Cocoa Board has invested absolutely very little in the productive sectors of cocoa.
Because we saw the divergence in their investment in some other areas that were not on the core mandate of Cocoa Board. But then again, so what are you going to be doing differently? Because now you have the mandate, you have the power, you have appointed a CEO there. What are you going to do differently?
So Alfred, I was going to go there, but I just wanted you to appreciate the situations very well, because you cannot profess one fit for all solution to all these losses that the agencies are facing. Now in Cocoa Board, the key way to solve this problem is just to target the production of the beans, of the cocoa. And how do you do that? One, cocoa research, as we speak, is even struggling. Allocations to cocoa research is a problem. Cocoa rehabilitation, the last few years, they said they were doing cocoa rehabilitation. They moved in there, subcontracted it to other people, cut down the cocoas, and they didn't invest in cocoa seedling production. So there are no seedlings. I know of farmers who have lost, they've cut down all their cocoas, and they have no seedlings to plant for 3 years. And they are supposed to be given some bonus, some 500 cedis bonus. That 500 cedis bonus is not even going. You understand? So I believe that if we focus on the motivation for production and get the farmers to produce, indeed, like any businessman, the farmer also wants to make profit. If he realizes that the cocoa that he's producing, he is not getting support. There is high input price. So the inputs are expensive. They are not getting support from government. They will not produce. And so for me, if you sit at cocoa board and you take syndicated loan, for example, and you use that syndicated loan to fund other irrelevant things in government budget, and you do not go and do cocoa spraying exercise, you do not give input subsidy or input support to the farmer, and you do not encourage the growing of new farms, you are joking. And Alfred, let me make this point. You see, cocoa is one crop that thrives on the climate. It grows in a certain environment. Now, the issue of environmental degradation is impacting the growing of cocoa in the south. But it is not only the southern part and the middle forest zone that you can grow cocoa. In actual fact, cocoa can do very well in areas around Uti region, Hohoi, and all those places. Yeah, right. But we are not investing in producing cocoa there. Now, because of the degradation of the vegetation around the southern area, now when you grow the cocoa, the yields are low. So you may be having 100 acres of cocoa. You may do all the cultural practices. You may manage it very well, but the yields will be low because the vegetation is also having impact on the productivity of the yields. And so what I think the cocoa board should do in a strategic move to expand our production of cocoa, because again, cocoa is very strategic for this economy. In fact, it balances our forex. The reason why our exchange rate struggles is because of cocoa. Because it's a commodity that trades very well.
Right.
And so I believe that we should advance through special initiatives the production of cocoa in the Middle Belt, because that place, because of the non-movement of the galamsey and all those things to those areas, because they don't have the gold as it is in the south. And so if we move the production of cocoa there through a special arrangement to get people to produce the cocoa, you give them the seedlings, you give them the inputs, you give them the fertilizer, as we used to do in the past. And Alfred, that is what helped us to posit the profits that we made in the past years before we left government. And so I think there is always a way out. It's a change management thing, depending on who is in the helm of affairs and how he manages the people and how he manages the staff. And again, I disagree with people who think that when the company is overbloated in terms of the staff, it leads to redundancy, and that is what makes them ineffective. No, it's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
Look, it is because management has not found use for that labor that is in there. If there is an efficient management model that is being employed, everybody will find use. I can assure you that somebody will say that the cocoa board payroll is overbloated.
Yes.
But yes, somebody will tell you that. Yes. But all those on the payroll, if you have an effective management system, you can put them to use and they will produce to increase the output of the company. And these are things that we should look at as a country. And not quickly run to the low-hanging fruits of, go and privatize, go and privatize, go and privatize. So let's look at management systems that work. It works across the world. And let's get people to work and protect jobs.
Measuring productivity is one of the issues that Professor Adair mentioned. So that if you have parachiks and political appointees there and their followers there, how then do you hold the person accountable to take action when his or her action of sacking these people who are not productive would lead to probably he himself losing his job?
Actually, not even sacking them. Not sacking them. It's not a sacking. No, wait. It's doing the work. Getting them to be productive. See, every now and then.
Role assignment is also part of productivity. If you assign wrong people to the right role, they will be productive.
We are going around.
You mentioned cocoa. You agree with me? You mentioned ECG cocoa. But I want to show you something. Let's put this on the screen. This is we tracked the losses of cocoa since 2017. And it certainly doesn't look good. It's been increasing over the
Why did you start only for 2017? Why did you go
because
back?
If you go back
we can go back.
Yes.
We can go back.
So that it's not politicized.
Yes, because then
so ask them to bring us
it
more.
actually shows some period of profit as well before
2017.
So we captured as losses.
These are symptoms.
It's
Why
2022.
are we talking about symptoms?
2022.
Instead of talking about the root causes of the problem, that will change what you have on the screen.
Which is what? In the state-owned enterprises generally?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
What
so
is the problem?
No, a number of issues have been raised, and let me state categorically that the TUC and the Public Service Workers Union, for that matter, are against every form of privatization.
Even private
Of course, that's one.
and
that one is not ideologically opposed.
Yes, it's both
that
an
one is not
ideological and political issue.
Yes,
and it is up to us. And I like the point you make, Prof, there, that the ownership doesn't matter. Look, if you have a company like ECG, Cocobot, Ghana Airport Company, or TOR, whatever, it's a company. How are companies supposed to be run? What is the mandate of that organization? And let's not generalize and lump all the public sector organizations together. They have been set up for different purposes. Some have been set up to undertake activities for our own governance, survival, and therefore do not have means to generate any income. And they must be supported well. The staff and everything must be well paid and taken care of.
But still,
there are others.
No,
let me just
check their productivity.
I'm not saying
not making profit doesn't mean that you have.
If I may make my point, Prof, I'm not talking about their productivity.
Yes, because
I'm talking about the fact that you have set them up to perform a certain function, which is not to make, which is not commercial. It's not for them to go and make profit. So there's a different way you measure their productivity. There are those who we call partially subvented through the way they were set up and what they do. They are able to generate some income or IGF, which they are expected to use to be retooling themselves, improving on their structure, system, infrastructure, and the rest, so that they can continue to deliver those services for citizens. They are there, and they are the salary components, the item 1 and those things are carried on by government. Then you now have those that you have set up for commercial purposes. And I believe they are the ones that most of this about losses and things are being mentioned about. And I'm saying that we can learn from nature. Our body, as we see here, is operating with systems. You have the nervous system, you have the lymphatic system, you have cardiovascular system, you have reproductive system. If the reproductive system is not working, it means there's something wrong. A certain part of that system needs to be fixed. It doesn't mean the whole system is rotten.
Or the whole body.
And therefore go to the hospital and let them remove all the reproductive system. Then you are no longer a human being.
But you know, but in some cases, the problem is systemic.
Don't worry. That's why exactly.
That's all.
You see, our previous speakers have mentioned the critical ones. And that is the political interference. And we are appointing people and not even allowing them to work. I've been doing this work for the past 18 years, 14 of it in leadership. I have come across chief executives who have very good intention. They have directors and staff. Look, I say we have some of the richest human resources in this country. Go to CSIR.
Amazing.
Go and see the scientists we have there and the work they are doing there. Go to VRE. Very reputable engineers, trained. They've been handling our energy situation. Gridco, all the ones you are mentioning. One of the key reasons that some of these companies are not working is that you have these people who come with strategic plans or systems to work. But there's somebody sitting somewhere, either in the Jubilee House of Life. It's a political person who has power, all right, and says that, no, this is not how we want you to do it. This is how we want you to do it.
And therefore,
you have alluded to that. So if we want the system to work, that person should remove his hand. When you appoint Martin, that you are the chief executive of VRE, these are your key performance indicators. What do we want? We want power to be generated to this level. These are the resources. So apart from the political resources, some of the state institutions
don't even have the requisite equipment and resources that they need to even operate. I have some of my members who use their own money, salaries, to do official work. There are some who pay light bill and water bill with their salary, the meager salaries. I'm telling you, they use it to pay because goods and services has not been released. That's also another problem. There are institutions who have earmarked funds. It has been capped. So if you cap it, what are they going to use to perform the mandate you have given them for you to even come and say you are measuring and talking about productivity?
Using it to fund expenditure.
You understand? These are the root causes of the problem. But as the experience of Ade, and I'm happy he I mean, we are proud of it. It is mentioned. The other issues around it, and at the end of the day, though Labour will be against it from the beginning, but when he expanded, and the company, I mean, or the Gimpa,
more jobs.
He rather employed more. Those are the kind of things we need. And we think if VRA, airport, toll, ECG, these state institutions we have set up for commercial purposes, if we can deal with these roots, fundamental root causes, the overbloating of their remuneration or wages and the rest, go and check. Some of them are due mainly to the way people are even employed in the public sector.
Inefficiency.
How they are employed. Sometimes it's like a dumping ground. We have a state institution who had about 800 staff to work with. Over the last 8 years, they have employed 2,000. They are now 2,000. Yeah. I'm telling you, people go to office and they don't even get desks to sit on to work. Not that they don't want to work. They are ready to work. Some, they refuse. They say, because you have a certain color, you are tainted with a certain color, they won't give you job to do. Those are the things happening on the ground. When it comes to our performance appraiser issue, performance management system, and I think Franklin mentioned it, and I agree with him. We don't do proper performance management system. You go to organizations and management is telling you, oh, we have performance appraiser, they should feel it. Then I asked, how did you come about with the KPIs? I asked the workers, did your supervisor sit down with? They said no. We were just there, they brought us a paper to sign. Yeah. And I said, and you sign? They said if you don't do it, they will sanction you. So they sign. But we need to make sure that we have proper performance management systems with well-crafted and KPIs that will lead to the achievement of the mandates of these organizations. Mm-hmm. When you do some of these things and you have clear deliverables for chief executives and hold them strictly by it. Yeah. Look, government should not come down to the ordinary workers.
And give them the freedom to perform.
To perform, yes. That's the political interference we are talking about. You see, government should forget about checking the ordinary worker. No. Why are you paying the chief executive? Why are you paying directors? Why do they have a board? Let the professionals do their work. And then I like Francis' idea of stewardship. I would say you should add pragmatism. But the only thing is that I disagree with him on the privatization one. Yes, there are studies, there are people who privatization have not worked for. How do you call it? State-owned enterprises have not worked for. But that is their situation. It doesn't mean that for Ghana, with the level of intelligence, people like Prof. Ade and the others I know in the public sector who have been trained. When you go to some of the energy
Bernard, our experts, companies, they go outside the country.
They go outside. They are top. They are top. And we are saying that they are not capable. So the main thing is what we are talking about.
The atmosphere.
The governance system, the infrastructure or resources for them to work with, including financial resources, and then allowing them to work with proper business or management practices and processes.
No interference.
No interference. You come in when they have failed to deliver. Yeah. If government has anything he wants VRA or anything to do, that's why you have reps on the or you appoint people to the board. And the understanding is that you have an idea. You want all Ghanaians to have power or electricity. Let them go and discuss how we can get electricity. Would we be happy if Ghana Water Company makes billions of dollars profit at the end of the year, but 60 to 70 people of Ghanaians do not have clean potable water to drink? Is that when we say Ghana Water Company is doing well? No, we disagree. If Ghana Water Company is able to provide clean potable water for Ghanaians to drink, and they even make 1 cedi profit, we should be proud. So profit is important, but people matter. People matter most. So our public sector architecture and system should be geared towards providing services for citizens. Then when we get to the portion, we are subsidizing everybody when it comes to electricity, for instance. Why don't we create a situation where there is a basic, for those who really need it, 1 bulb, 1 iron in the house, and somebody who is living in East Legon or Airport Reach who want to have lights in the garden, lights in the middle of the house, and all that, to pay for it, so that we can concentrate on having a proper base load that can support our industrialization ideas and purposes. So I think that we should not go for the symptoms and be preferring solutions for the symptoms, but we should go to the root cause. And that's what I wish that my brother Otukuno should carry and make sure that in John Mohammed's administration, leave the heads of the state-owned enterprises to operate. Just give them what you want them to achieve.
Appoint the right person.
Appoint the right person. And leave them to operate. And hold them accountable. Because if they know that there will be sanctions or you hold them accountable, you think they will sit down for the directors to misbehave?
Exactly.
They will not. They will not. And the directors also, knowing that
you've seen the signs of
knowing that they will be held liable for that, will also not sit down for their those down there to do that, to do anything they want. Then following after that, resource them adequately. Resource. And we have talked about culture, our mentality, and the rest. NCC, they have been under-resourced and underfunded. But per the Constitution, they are set up to educate us on our civic responsibilities, not only on elections. Patriotism. So all these things are encompassing. So I think that we should leave the symptoms. The symptom is only telling you that if you are not able to give birth, there's something wrong with your reproductive system. If you are not breathing well, there's something wrong with your vascular system. Then we deal with those things.
You may refer to the outcome as the symptoms, but obviously it is the input that gives us this output of losses, this outcome that we're talking about. So it cannot be just symptoms.
Maybe I'm not making myself clear. Maybe I'm not making myself clear. I'm not saying the inputs are not important. No. I'm saying it's like garbage in, garbage out. So what I'm saying, effectively,
you're here, and I understand why you will take this direction. But it cannot be the case as well that
you can't put garbage in and expect garbage out.
Workers cannot also share in the blame.
No.
Of this state-owned enterprise. Because you are part of the productivity cycle.
Exactly. But take the example I've given you of a worker. You've employed me. Yes, I have to come to work and work. So I come to work. I've made myself available. I'm ready to work. Now I need a car, for instance, to go to the next community to deliver a service. There is no car.
There is no car.
Give me transportation to go. You said you don't have goods.
On this resources basis.
You don't have.
I want to come in.
You don't have goods and services. Goods and services have not been released to you, so you can't take it. Even in the office I'm sitting, I don't have a chair to sit on. The light bill, we are using prepaid, so it goes off, and you tell me you don't have goods and services, so I should use my salary to go and buy electricity. So I go and buy, and I come and sit. No, that is the input. That is the input. The worker, yes,
has the input business. But I'll tell you why.
The worker has a responsibility to work, and the point I'm making is that the worker is ready to work. See, when you take all our collective agreements, There are sanctions for non-performance. There are sanctions if workers don't fulfill their responsibilities.
And do those sanctions
the rest.
really work?
Well, so you should be asking the chief executive or the director who is in charge of that. Of course, how you don't give.
And you see, that's why
you don't have a proper performance management system.
That's why I asked the question. For you as a union, your core mandate is to advocate for the well-being of your members who are there.
We're also interested in the development of the organization. Yes,
which is the
growth, because without that, I don't have a job.
The first mandate, obviously. But for you, public, so your first mandate is to advocate for the welfare of the public sector worker. And I'm saying that we cannot talk about the losses and the underperformance of these public sector or these state-owned enterprises without also talking about the productivity of the workers. And you say that it's not the case because for you, the worker is there to work.
Yes.
And
so you agree with the productivity bit.
Yes. You see, that's what I'm saying. That I agree that
the public sector worker cannot be blamed for this. The losses.
No, Alfred. Let's understand ourselves. I'm telling you that we are ready and interested in productivity. That is why when we go to work and they don't give us work to do, it disturbs us. It disturbs us. It worries us. If we are not getting the resources to do the work, it disturbs us. That's the point I'm trying to make. So we are ready to work. We know we have a role to play to make sure that there's productivity. We know we've developed a whole productivity policy and document and indices. So we agree. We know when there is productivity, there will be opportunity also to expand the operations of the organization, and therefore more people can be employed. One of our objectives as unions also is to promote employment. So I have relatives, I have brothers, I have sisters, I have cousins who need job. They need work to do. So I will be very happy that ECG is doing so well that ECG needs more hands to work. I'll be very happy that TOR is doing well, that airport company is doing well.
Right.
Gridco, VRA, Civil Aviation, Ghana Railway, Shipyard, all of them. I'll be very happy because the truth is that when they are doing well, the work also what? Expands.
Okay.
And then we need more people to come and work. So if maybe I didn't explain myself well, we are interested in productivity and we have a role to play in productivity.
And you take responsibility in that aspect of things as well. Professor Ade, you're going to come in a bit. But I want us to see the trend of the losses that I referenced earlier. We're going to put that on the screen. Right? This is it. This according to the finance minister. This is the data that he presented on Tuesday. The streak of losses that these state-owned enterprises have been making over time. And you see some of them, they make profit in 1 year. The subsequent years is losses continuously from VRA to PSC Tama Shipyard, Ghana Railway Company Limited, Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Company, Gihawk. Electricity Company of Ghana is #1 for the obvious reasons. We see in 1 year, for instance, over 8 billion cedis loss posted. You know, the ensuing year, over almost 6 billion cedis loss. You see VRA as well, 2021 profit of 112 million, I beg your pardon. And then in 2022, the loss was over 277 million. And then let's flip to the next page. You see PMMC, 2021, this is PMMC. Now, Sami Jemfi has that responsibility of turning this story around. Over 12.4 million cedis lost in 2021. That dropped to 2.73 million in 2022. And then in 2023, they posted a profit of about 42 million. Accra Digital Center has been losses over the period.
is also making losses.
Airtel Tigo as well. Ghana Post losses. And they posted some profits as well, we see in 2023. Graphic Communications Group Limited, we've seen as well, the 2023 year ended with over 15 million cedis lost. Ghana Cocoa Board, that profit you see in 2023, the finance minister explained that it was because they had their debts repayment suspended. there was some breathing space. So, but if you match their debts at the time to the profit, it actually wipes off
But
all the
graphic
profits.
too is making losses now.
Consolidated Bank as well, we've seen the book's going to look good.
Graphic.
Professor Day, yeah, that's the verdict. You wanted to make a point about productivity. You just...
Well, as economic historian, it's quite interesting. At the time of the overthrow of Nkrumah, there were 32 state enterprises. The average capacity utilization was 15%, and only 2 were making profit. And we have carried it on. Now it's getting worse by this. There's no doubt at all that as a nation, this cannot continue. And there must be a time frame that this trend will be stopped, because the state cannot use a budget to make sure that precious minerals don't bring any money. But we rather put money for someone to be the chief executive of precious mineral or Consolidated. Actually, I'm shocked to see Consolidated Bank in that situation. But let me go back. First of all, I would like to comment on this issue of resources. Listen, there we agree the management issue, because oftentimes I always say that if I give you all the resources you need, everything, then I can put in an automation for things to work. It's something I've not shared in public, but let me share it in public. You know, in Gimpa, when I came, if you saw the state, you will weep. I borrowed $3.3 million from Barclays Bank. I didn't go to the government on my own signature. I asked my board, they said, unfortunately, I'd come from, they wanted me even to pay Ghana dollar rate, because we were borrowing in dollars about 12%. I said, no, write to your office in that time in London. I will only borrow on LIBOR plus. So after 2 weeks they came, they said that the headquarters has approved. I can borrow from LIBOR plus 1 in Ghana. No security. But in 5 years, I paid all of it. When I was leaving Gimpa, we had only one installment of $168,000. And that, the money was available in January to pay. This idea, I believe that leadership, and here it includes management, is course.
Very important.
Because some of these resources issues can be resolved internally if the person is appointed. That's why I must say I get sad, whereby, whether it's MPP or NDC, oh, we have appointed this person to go ahead, this to go ahead, this. Those positions are so, if somebody is going to manage or mismanage your 8 billion, $500 million, you don't say that politically, I've appointed somebody. Let it be competitive. Let people be interviewed. So first, our means of appointment, whereby it is one party replaced, and in 1 or 2 cases which I know about, oh, he's appointed, he goes, get out of the office, it's my turn. And if you have been appointed to be a CEO of an organization, why will you go even and harass the outgoing? Because it is yours anyway. So first of all, the appointment. Then with that comes the quality of the management. The board is
quality of the management.
Yes. And then the board is very, very significant. For me, I find our public services, one of the weaknesses is that the government appoints simultaneously the board and the chief executive. And the chief executive sometimes don't feel accountable to the board. Whereas in other good systems, it should be the priority of the government to appoint the board first and allow the board to appoint through competitive search the CEO, and you hold the board as owner accountable, and the board to deliver must hold the CEO. So it's a whole governance and management system. And when you are going to, as a government, yes, you mention the categories of the organizations, but I've always said that, why don't you link the public sector pay to the growth of the national income? Because after all, you are supporting the government to deliver. You cannot come and say that, inflation is this, therefore give me this. No.
Okay.
Link it to
growth rather than inflation.
Yes.
That would be a very interesting one.
No, that's what No. Because here is the public sector, the government and the public sector. As soon as you do so, they will be interested in making sure the government will deliver, grow, but why should you be paid because there's inflation when you haven't produced?
In the midst of this is fiscal responsibility, which actually drives more growth than productivity. And so if you lay that burden on the worker because of productivity and there's fiscal responsibility and the growth is not coming, then the worker is suffering.
Did you see that I linked both the government, the government and the worker? They constitute the public sector because Ghanaians are being shortchanged, whereby the government and the public sector, and especially the government, now, we wanted in an organization, we wanted to buy for 4 months, buy a Toyota Land Cruiser. You can't get some to buy. And they say, there's a new government and there's a new system. First of all, those who are going probably want to use their money. Those who are coming wants to get new ones. You can't.
In the case of lack of supply in the system.
Yes, because the demand is so much. So I think that there must be a link between what you earn and what you produce. And you can't say that you haven't given me something to produce and therefore pay me.
That one I agree with you.
And this is why I bring in Lawyer Matipebo, because we've heard at some point that the government pretends to be paying and the worker also pretends to be working. Something must change.
Yes, Kufuor's this statement on the matter, I think he had running with the workers TUC. Yeah, when he was in office and then he said it, Yeah, so you see, these things we are saying, we are all saying the same thing. In one word, we are all saying we want systems to work. If the systems work, these things will fall in place.
Indeed.
But from what we are all saying, the politicians are not allowing the systems to work. We are also contributors because as soon as they take office right now, you see that we need jobs. So people come, this job for my nephew, this one for my cousin, So you see, it's become a chicken and egg matter. You see, otherwise, look, we've known all this. You think, ECG, how can ECG make losses? How can you convince me that ECG should make losses? No,
I just don't understand.
There is no, so we just need that thing that, look, free the hands of the ECG CEO. Okay, not too much political interference. And also the procurement. Let's have an independent board that will scrutinize. Look, ECG, they want to buy this. It goes from here to there. People are adding their own margins. I'm telling you that ECG's #1 problem is corruption. You saw the audit report. Dubik was asked. Before that thing happened, we heard it. We knew that ECG was under-declaring. If you went into the industry, you hear that Ole Ekufuado, and some other people and the MD knew how much ECG really made. They were under-declaring. Then finally the World Bank came in. So the World Bank pushed for the audit. And the audit revealed it. Then Dubik was asked, you were under-declaring. Is it a crime to under-declare? How? Is it a crime to under-declare revenue? Can you imagine? So I'm telling you that this matter of ECG, corruption is the #1 problem. All right? People close to Ekufuado, his family members, were the people buying fuel for ECG? Who was checking whether fuel was really delivered or not? Ask ECG. People close to Ekufuado's family. Were the people buying fuel? Yes, I'm telling you.
You know that how?
You check. Fuel. Ask them who was buying. The company. Who owns the company?
What should I check?
Ekufuado's relations. Do you know? So listen, look, let's stop this privatization thing. I like what Jay said. Let's drill deep. The real problem It's corruption, it's thievery. Even when we say corruption, we are not saying it well. It's thievery that is causing most of this problem. So if you want to get
how are we going to stop the thievery? That's the issue.
So that's the noise we are making here. You see, we are all making noise. We are. I mean, when I say noise, I mean a positive. We are being. Exactly. Exactly. I like that. So right now, as we are talking,
when the first step is to stop every prosecution.
No. There's some of the prosecutions, they were bad. At 214 soon. Godfrey didn't do it. He was coaching a witness. Asking the witness to lie.
And the court found out.
The court will not always be right. You think the court... You don't know.
If you don't believe in the court,
will not always be fair.
Exactly.
I don't like that. If you undermine the court system, we are all dead.
If you don't raise questions to against the court some of the time, they will reform, please. So you always need a bit of skepticism.
Yes.
I want Lama to be able to make his point.
Okay.
I'll come to you when your time is up. So how do we fight or address this?
So all right. Thank you very much for reminding me, Dr. Tukuno. It's all right. So we'll recover all the loot, implement, enforce the law. Enforce the law, because I was telling you that elsewhere, government is getting more into business. Thatcher, who came and told us, hey, privatization, neoliberal economics, privatize, cut down, structural adjustment, this. They themselves, look, there is British, Business Bank. British Business Bank just set up recently to give loans to their own companies. They are setting up. You go to the North Sea where they do the oil and gas. Government is supporting other sectors of the economy. Go to the US, you find government in there, right? So this thing about, let the market work, give to private companies, it's not on the table. We are not going to allow here. Dr. Tukono mentioned how Obama
gives economists don't say you won't allow the market to work.
No, the market exactly. So,
you see,
Dr. Tukono mentioned, I'm landing.
You see, the issue about corruption, you said this is thievery.
It's thievery, that's our main problem.
The fundamental concern here is, if that's the case, and I asked this question because you had a mandate to fight corruption somewhat in this administration as well. You've done your work. You are done. But after oral, how do we prevent? That's what Professor Kwazai was saying. Operation Prevent All Loot. After oral, OPAL. How do you expect this corruption or thievery to be fought by this administration in the coming days?
Good. So we've started, right? That's what we are doing around this table.
Sunshine campaign.
Exactly. Naming and shaming, and even for those with not named, by constantly saying that, no, we want to fight corruption. Corruption has no place in our society. It's part of the fight, because so basically I keep telling some people that we are also preaching here, preaching to ourselves and preaching to our audience that let's stop, because corruption has destroyed us for far too long, right? That's one. Then two, you see the investigations that are ongoing. Earlier on today, we mentioned Gift Owari answering questions. Professor Enia Ekunfi went in earlier. He and Joe Gatti, Joe Gatti, former railway minister, and those people. They are also answering questions on the Phantom Sky Train, the Sky Train that never came. And yet we paid $2 million. Can you imagine? So they are answering questions. There are more cases, right? More cases. So that is it. Investigations and prosecutions. So we are doing the normal things that are to be done. And if we did those right, we would make a lot of progress, right? So tying all of this in, what we're saying is that, please, it's not esoteric. Our main problem is thievery and the political patronage. These are the things. Thievery and political patronage. If we were to do the right things, we would make progress. I mean, ECG can't make such losses. You see, one of the cases that Ufuriata is wanted for, there was a company that ECG had engaged to help reduce the losses. And it's one of the areas of OSP is investigating on corruption. Corruption came in there. A company brought in to help reduce ECG's losses. Then that company said corruption. You see that it's just like UK. There was this anti-corruption minister. Tulip, about a month to a month and a half ago, Tulip was appointed as anti-corruption minister. She herself, it turned out that she was linked to Sheikh Hasina, the Bangladeshi former prime minister, blah, blah. Long story short, they thought that no, there was corruption around her. She herself had to leave. So the point, so you see, even the UK, where they are ahead of us, they are fighting corruption. Corruption minister herself was suddenly smelling corruption. They had to kick her out, right? And then bring somebody else. So the point I'm making is that the fact that we fail doesn't mean we should stop. I like what Dr. Tukono said. We can't just say privatization. Me, I've told you, people have shown rise and fall of the neoliberal order. These privatizations is gone. Governments are getting more into business. Let our government be there. But let the system work. Let the system work. And that's what we are doing now. And I like this example. Let's keep quoting it because it motivates us. Today, JM has put in 60 ministers. Didn't this conversation start over 20 years ago? Yeah. Check. Ekufuor came, yes. Atamils came, all of them. Then gradually there were promises. But today, JM is delivered it. Yes. At least the fact that the main ministers is 60. Professor there, the point I'm making is that public opinion is one. Yeah. So one other thing we are not putting up in our discussions is that we forget that society takes time to evolve. So we need to give ourselves a bit of time. It takes effort. And effort. Okay. But in terms of the effort, leadership. I think we are, and leadership, in terms of the effort, I think we are pushing now than ever. And the results of the elections tells you that citizens are pushing. No, because who could have dreamt NGC beat NPP by 1.6 million in Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana? No. I remember not too long, 2 decades ago, NPP to attend NDC people, University of Ghana. If you were NDC, they used to attend meetings in the night, dead of the night. It's very true. To crawl to attend. When we were in school. Exactly. And if you were said to be NDC, let's say you were an intellectual. Yes. University of Ghana. I look back and I'm like, what? The party that you couldn't openly associate with, you had to attend meetings. People were attending meetings in the night. And if you were caught, even you'll be ponded. The meeting doesn't last 1 hour. Exactly. Okay. You see? So the point is, I tell you that there's a change. Ghanaians can see that no, some people came touting themselves. We have all the men. They tended to they came out, or it turned out that they were incompetent, right? So why don't we go with the one who will be more humble and will engage us more? But the point in all of this, I'm saying, is that society takes time to evolve. Look, I've read a lot of American history, right? This election stealing, corruption, it's the same. And even the private sector, people are saying privatize. Let's use one example. I was on that point when I was distracted. I left it. Dr. Tukono mentioned how Obama used socialist ideas to re-engineer the collapse of the market, right?
The housing collapse.
Yes. What caused it? Was it not greedy capitalists? What did they subprime lending? What caused that problem? They saw people who weren't qualified for loans, and yet because of greed, gave them loans. A self-fulfilling prophecy. So it was only time, and then the loans would go bad. So here we are preaching that suddenly the businessmen are the angels, and the private sector the devil. It's not true. It's human beings. Public sector is made of the devils, and the private sector are angels. You can't get it. When you say that, then it means you don't even we don't even appreciate who private sector people are. Very greedy for profit. Very, very greedy for profit. A typical businessman is there to make profit. He's not there looking for the public good. So when you keep saying privatize, no. Subprime lending. The whole of the world was thrown into economic hardship, right? As early as 2007, 2008. The housing crisis, that collapsed bank, Merrill Lynch, Bears and Stern, etc. collapsed. It was socialism that eventually saved them, as Dr. Tukuno made a point. But so human beings are greedy. It's neither private nor public. It's about human beings and the systems working. System, the management the system certainly. Ghana, the loans, the banks, we had to collapse. Of course, we don't agree. But we see Oforiatta and the MPP did that to punish opponents. But don't you see some of the things that the banks were doing? They were taking liquidity support and using it for other things. And you are saying that the private sector is better than government. It's a human beings and the system.
So you talk about the systems as well, and you touched on the system and the fight against corruption, which is actually, you touched on our next issue, which is very important. And this where lawyer Bobby Banson is going to be joining us after this quick break. He's a private legal practitioner as well, because you, lawyer Martin Pibble, mentioned already some of the actions being taken in respect to the details of that report of the oral preparatory team that you were part of.
Yeah.
But how do we fight corruption going forward in this way, so as also not to go on a slippery path of being caught in our own actions? We will be back after this quick break. It's another very important issue we're going to deal with, the fight against corruption. Stay with us.
Mirror into one pan out to me did say.
Missy, divine mixture and a boost me appetite. I'm a manumati 1 year and saying, "Be to me, did you?"
Mirror, so soon divine mixture be and audience see me. Saint and saying, "What good day a conquer."
Yeah, at this time, I'm into me nine. Divine mixture and a manumwa at Tuasi. Say your cocoa, Umojana Swat, and answer why I'm rewan Pambema. We hear divine mixture.
Divine mixture, a yema or ba or a fitchikomu how. No been a manumia, a yim a fitchikomu how Amama FFF.
I am a hutu, and when I'm yow. Divine mixture, a money member in it, I say another come for fair. About was son, I say, any berryma was son. Adam, Benya divine mixture, our pharmacies, and a licensed chemical shop. Divine mixture, the Upedu to a Cal Pharmaceuticals Limited. Our 0244 422 297. Divine mixture, and your map, one more mama friend for any more from Munya 6 years a day. Divine mixture, our savior. Divine mixture, Yanjefo. FDA, I just saw a gradient crack to him. I just to Musa a year.
Step up with DSTV and we'll show up by giving you more incredible entertainment.
Going to have a little fun.
Upgrade your subscription between the 13th of January and the 31st of March and get an even higher package for a whole month on us.
Buckle up, here we go.
There's nothing better than putting a little bit in but getting a lot out.
Time to boost some office morale. Incredible!
When you want to build a future, you gotta know what you want.
Step up and we'll show up on your home of entertainment, DSTV.
The winner for Perfect Match Extra Season 2 is Martin and Tessie!
You thought you've seen it all, but guess what? The game of love is just getting started. More drama, more passion, more unexpected twists. Get ready for a love story like no other. PM Extra, love, betrayal, heartbreak, and triumph. PM Extra, coming soon on TV3.
Hello, beautiful people of Ghana. CJ Multimedia presents to us the 4th edition of Aquaba Fest 25. From 6th to 8th March, all road leads to the National Theatre, Accra.
TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. Also on a number of radio stations across the country. And then also good morning to the people listening to us in the United Kingdom and also in the United States. Thank you. This one here from Alfred Apia, who is our data analyst here. That's for Key Point. Specifically, he said the discussion about losses at state-owned enterprises is incomplete without looking at the role of political interference. For example, ECG management and board couldn't have unilaterally decided to consistently underdeclare revenue to the cash waterfall mechanism without having some political backing. No way they would continue to lie to the regulator if the political backing wasn't wrong and strong, you say. Thank you very much. And he says that actually ECG losses in 2023 are worse than the SIGA report captured. They actually lost 10.2 billion cedis, not the one that even the finance minister presented on Tuesday. So, Alfred, thank you very much for that. The SIGA report was from an audited financial statement. So the audited financial statement actually posts a higher figure of losses by ECG, 10.2 billion. Thank you, Alfred. Thank you for that. Dr. Clement Apak, Deputy Education Minister, good morning, sends a message. It says, great panel, great discussion. I've come to the conclusion that the bane of our nation can be summed up in 2 words, greed and indiscipline. If we can cut these by just 20%, the positive impact will marvel all of us. Most of the ills in our society, such as corruption, the destruction of our environment, shoddy public work, roads, littering, wastage of public resources are fueled by greed and indiscipline. While we work at these, we must reset our educational system to prioritize values. Value-based education will not only address greed and indiscipline, but will produce truly patriotic and honest public citizenship. Dr. Clement Apak, thank you very much for your message. This one here says, okay, this is, talk about SIGA. And guess, I just got a message from Dr. Bessa White, who is the acting CEO of the State Inter-Governance Authority as well. That message just lost out on me in a bit, but I'll pull that message. This one says, hello, Alfred. There are more private sector companies collapsing on a monthly basis than public sector companies. Let's not make it appear as though the private sector is fortified against mismanagement. We talk about Airtel Tigo as a private company. Wouldn't, it says, at the time have folded up if all it takes is for an entity to be in private sector. In other words, the private sector is not necessarily a solution to mismanagement. The real issue is not who owns the SOEs. Instead, it's one of how they are managed. Let's take the politics and political patronage out of SOEs and they will perform exceedingly. You say, thank you very much for your message. This one from Seta Bloso, say labor expert. Gentlemen, integrity of appointment in public service. When a person who has been identified for fraud in 2 forensic audits on SNIT and duly recommended for prosecution, among other persons, but is subsequently appointed when crime has no expiry date and in disregard of the imperative to restrain fraudulent persons from managing companies, whether convicted or not. Section 1177 is what you're quoting for me. Thank you very much, Seth Abloso. And that said, okay, this, quite a long one. Thank you very much. Ebenezer Havo, it says, notwithstanding, I would disagree with Professor Ade's notion for not cancelling the e-levy and other abnormal taxes introduced. You know, that's actually a point he has made over and over again. So I don't think we belabor the point. But thank you very much for your message this morning. Really do appreciate you sending us this message as well. And let me bring in lawyer Bobby Bunsen, private legal practitioner. Counsel, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Good morning.
It's great to have you.
Alfred, good morning to the panelists. I've been enjoying the show so far.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, Mr. J, before you leave us, you say on the fight against corruption in the public sector, how can the public sector workers also help in fighting corruption? Quick one.
Thank you very much, Alfred. Corruption has become endemic, but we believe that we should allow the state institutions charged with rules to make sure we stem out this. When you take the Auditor General's report, even on some of the public institutions, GBC comes readily in mind, and issues surrounding the All-African Games and the rest.
Okay.
Certain findings have been made, and we expect that the appropriate institutions that are charged with dealing with this issue are allowed to deal with them.
Okay.
We are always trying to come in, and pastors will be brought, imams will be brought, chiefs will be brought to come and beg and the rest. But no, until we hold people responsible for their action. We workers, we are held responsible when we go wrong, when we go foul. It's in our collective agreement. Disciplinary action processes are taken, and when someone has to even be sacked for finding himself at the wrong side of the rules of the game, that is done. And we expect the same thing to be done for heads of public institutions as well as political leaders. That is what, otherwise as workers, we are very committed. We have one of the most qualified workforce in the world all over. We should harness that, let our systems work, and we will contribute to productivity.
How do you react to those who say, for instance, the civil servants and the public sector workers, they know the in and out of the organization, and if a minister or anybody will succeed or will be able to know how to run around things and get corrupt, it is with the assistance of the workers in some of these state-owned enterprises?
Actually, I always say that nobody ever steals government body without corroboration of the accountants and the hierarchy.
Well, you see, that is why I'm telling you that the auditor's report, for instance, when they come, they identify some of these things. It is the failure to take action on them which makes other people think that they can come and do it and go scot-free. So that's why I'm recommending that whatever findings the Auditor General has made on any corrupt activity in public institutions should be fully pursued and dealt with. It will serve as deterrent. I rather encourage heads or boards of public institutions to work with the workers, direct them, and let them know that these are their visions and this is what they want to do to improve their fortunes.
Okay.
We want good conditions of service. We want to work and be productive and be rewarded for what we do.
Okay.
And I think if we make sure these things are done, we can deal with the issues of both corruption in the public service so far as public sector workers and management of public sector organizations are concerned.
So, Dr. Otokono, you commissioned Oral. They've done their work. You are recovering what has been looted. But what could be looted? The call is on you to prevent it.
Okay.
So how do you intend to do this differently from what we've seen right now? And why should we be convinced that you will fight corruption, really?
First of all, I think that the people of Ghana are in a position of confidence right now when it comes to President Mahama, because the issue about the fight against corruption, again, I will go to Professor Stephen Adair. It's also about leadership, and it is incremental, and the singular efforts matter.
Okay.
President Mahama, when he was a president, showed amply that he detests corruption, and he is willing and ready to fight corruption head on. And I always say, past when he was president.
Well,
President Mahama is the only sitting president, who conducts investigation into various agencies headed by his appointees without even their knowledge.
And he's able to receive the report and take action. And in some instances, release the reports for public consumption. We talk about JIDA and people, accuse President Mahama of JIDA. What people do not know is that President Mahama was the one who commissioned the investigations into the JIDA matter and released the report and got officers responsible jailed. His own friend, very good friend, he served in parliament with, and I know this man very well, Abu Gapele. He's very good friend of President Mahama. They were very close.
That's good.
Abu Gapele was jailed. He was sent to court under his government.
Yeah.
And that was not the only one. In fact, what people do not know was that most of the institutions were investigated regularly. And so when it comes to President Mahama holding his appointees accountable, that one, I have no iota of doubt.
But the
no
previous
single
iota
was
not
doubt.
foolproof of corruption.
Exactly. You are working with human beings.
You have to acknowledge that.
The people that you are going to appoint, Alfred, everybody comes with their own interest. And that's why you are the leader. And that is why you must know what is going on in the institutions. And that is why you must follow their activities. And that is why you must take action where they need be.
My question was innocent.
And so,
I wanted to find out which regime we are talking about.
So I'm not worried about that. So I'm not worried. I'm giving you evidence. The evidence is replete. Look, you can mention even all the accusations against President Mahama's government, and I can show you with evidence how he frontally fought those issues.
Let's not dwell in the past
and try to deal with it.
Forward.
No, it's very important because you see, where you come from is important to determine how you move into the future. And that is why oral is very crucial. I wouldn't entertain this conversation that, there's corruption and there's oral, so we should move from that and look at how we are going to prevent. Let's actually talk about what is there right now, because talking about corruption is the most effective if you want, is it the corruption side, or do you want to call it corruption side? So disinfectant. Disinfectant or insecticide that kills corruption.
All right.
Because if you do not talk about corruption, if you do not expose corruption, corruption thrives. Yes. And so, as part of the oral, one critical element is the exposés and the discussions about the exposés and the individuals involved and discussing the ways around which the corruption even occurred. Then
why don't you want to talk about the prevention of what could be stolen?
Obviously, I will talk about
what
prevention.
Could be looted.
I will talk about prevention, but I must first talk about the current situation. Okay. I can't just jump out of nothing and talk about prevention. Then to prevention. I made the point about President Mahama and how he conducts himself in terms of the fight against corruption for very good reason. And President Mahama, beyond all other things, from the State of the Nation's address and all the engagements that he has had during the swearing in of the ministers, has reiterated that, look, if indeed it is because of the gains that you would have in this government that you are coming to take office, then beware. Because President Mahama will not condone corruption, and he will not clear you. He will not become a clearing agent. And he has made this statement time without number. And so, as for the opal,
carry him at my back.
No, as for the opal,
I want you to make that point when
Professor Stevie are there. Okay. As for the opal, it is going to work. Okay. And as much as possible, we, those in the NDC and those appointees of government, are also aware that, look, President Mahama will not shield us. And so when we are taking steps, we are very careful.
Okay.
So that you do the right thing. And again, before you move, President Mahama has not only spoken about KPIs, he has made a very bold statement about the code of ethics and code of conduct for public officers. And one of the things that the special advisor in charge of governmental affairs is working on strongly is the code of conduct for public officials.
Okay.
How public officials conduct themselves in a humble manner. They don't exude opulence. They conduct themselves in a manner that the state resources are managed efficiently to the use of the state and not for personal aggrandizement. All this come together to consolidate the fight against corruption.
Right.
Because the fight against corruption is not only in instances where you catch somebody who has, done some corrupt acts, stolen some money, but it's also about the conduct of the public officer. The
Right.
public officer must treat people with respect. He must conduct himself in a manner that is acceptable to society, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And so, Alfred, you can be rest assured that President Mahama has also learned a lot of lessons from the past government and when he was in power. And beyond the fact that he was even fighting corruption when he was a president in the past, he has learned all this and he's going to put all together to make sure that Ghana is rid of corruption and our public officers do what is right and go right and do right by the people.
Okay. Well, but Vincent, if you could sit up a bit for me, I'm coming to you on this, but this morning, as you always know, I've been clothed by Kogra Clothing, the best version of you. Locate them on the Spintex Road, 18 Junction, opposite the Allied Oil Filling Station. Ground floor, same building with a Ghana-made store. If you want this outfit I'm wearing and many others you've seen me wear every Saturday on Key Point, you can call Kogra Clothing on 0244 238 341. That's 0244 238 341. Or on WhatsApp 0500 9099. Choose Kogra, choose right. But Bunsen, so Oral done their preparatory work, but beyond that, what next, really, in the fight against corruption going forward? Not just the focus so much about what has been looted, but a call to prevention as well, because the president himself talks about procurement corruption as one of the ways that he is going to tackle corruption going forward. Expectations? If you can unmute for me, please.
Sorry. Good morning, Alfred. Once again, my expectation going forward in the fight against corruption, I think the panelists have spoken at length. Definitely there's a need to build institutions. That was why the last time I was in your studio with Senior Martin Peba, I was trying to confirm the legal basis for the activities of ORA, because then we would have to move from personalizing it or politicizing it into an institution where we would have a proper legal framework that will bind present and future governments or the political class or even the public service. And I was of the opinion that we had a Whistleblowers Act that provided a very extensive legal regime to actualize what the ORA committee sought to do or seeks to do. And I'm happy, at least with the submission of the report, the Attorney General says that he's taking steps to refer those matters that he thinks require further investigations. And it doesn't mean that any person who submitted any thing to oral that you've not heard anything about, the door is shut on you. I believe that the legal framework still exists. If you think that somebody has done something that is illegal, you don't have to wait for any political change, as it were, or anything. The institutions are there, they are bound to work, or they are mandated to work. You should go there and lodge the complaint. But beyond all that has been said, I think one thing that we must tend to look at is an issue of national orientation to take away some of the, for lack of a better word, hypocrisy in both our social, economic, and political discourse. Because like all the panelists have said, that we, in terms of human resource, there are few countries in Africa or West Africa, if I will narrow it, that has the level of expertise that the average Ghanaian has in terms of education and knowledge. It's just that we as a people decide when to apply the knowledge we have acquired to the common good and what we have not acquired. I wouldn't say that the institutions of state that we have presently are not enough, or the laws that we have are not enough. Let's take Galamsey, for instance. I know we are talking about corruption, but if we take the various incidents or framework, it will cut across. There are enough laws that will criminalize Galamsey. There are enough laws in Ghana, not that will that criminalizes Galamsey. There are enough institutions of state, either ad hoc or permanent, that have been set up to fight Galamsey. But the change of political power after January 7th has not stopped Galamsey. It means that we, the people, have the foremost responsibility. Government is defined, or democracy is defined as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. sometimes I think our problem in the fight against corruption and all those things that come with it is that majority of the people tend to leave all the responsibility to the political class. And it makes us hypocrites because at the end of the day, the political class is chosen from amongst us. And they are the reflection or a reflection of where as a people we tend to go. And so irrespective of whether party A or party B is in government, we the people must take foremost responsibility to eschew corruption and corrupt practices. There is no politician that walks to the citizen to ask that I want to do this for you, but you must give me this. It includes civil servants, so I'm not limiting it to politicians alone. It includes civil servants. We always go to them and tell them that we want this. Because of your position, we would want you to use it in our favor. And so there is always an offer before there's an acceptance. And so if the people continue to say that we want to rely on the political class or the political elite or the people that we think are sitting on the upper echelons of our society to be able to change the narrative from corruption to galamsey to all the things that undermine the development and the progress of the country that we have, then we will be a joke because we will keep changing political power holders. We will keep changing those that we think are responsible for our where we are without putting the blame or taking responsibility by ourselves. And it is good that your platform and other platforms keep harnessing these facts. I think that institutions of state that, such as the National Commission for Civic Education is one is, and we used to have, okay, we still have I think the information something. There's a government agency that those days they used to go around with vans to speak about civic responsibility and obligation.
Information services, information, ISD, and then, yeah, apart from ISD, there's NCC, ISD, yeah.
Yes. How much of the budget is allocated to such state institutions that have been set up by various laws on even the Constitution in the context of the National Commission for Civic Education to ensure that the average Ghanaian understands his role, his responsibility, and his obligation, right from when people are gaining admission to secondary schools. They are exposed to corruption because sometimes you would have to manipulate the system, know who you know, to be able to have access to secondary school. So we get out of these basic education levels thinking that it is a cool thing to pull strings to achieve something that ordinarily you do not deserve. And if we do not have these institutions of state getting the necessary attention and budgetary allocation, we'll be going around in circle, pointing one finger to politicians and the political elite, and the four fingers will remain pointing at us. We are responsible, as when I say we, the majority of us that do not form the civil society elite or the political elite, we are responsible for where we are. And we cannot fight corruption if we leave the responsibility solely to politicians and the heads of civil society.
And certainly, you talk about not living like ostriches, just approaching the issues as they are. And Professor Stephen, when Dr. Tukono was talking, you say you put him at your back. What happens? Why exactly do you
what
think
I'm saying is this.
There's no trust in...
No. It has not to do at all.
Okay.
Fighting corruption is so important that anybody who will succeed, even though I'm an old man, I will do push-up and I will physically put him at my back to show, because...
you need to hit them. So if President Mama succeeds in fighting corruption, you will carry him at your back.
Oh, I'll put it down and say, I'm going to start my push-up. Then I will really go to and put John at my back and carry him, because it is the bane of our underdevelopment. And therefore...
And
underperformance. And let me say that actually there are several things, the studies show it, and I've spent a lot of time because of my work with the UN and in my own studies, that first of all, you should have systems that are relatively not complicated. Sure, you don't have to go through many systems. For example, I once studied the steps you took in clearing something from the port of Tema. And it was 53 steps. Even if you put angels there, they will be corrupt.
Yeah.
And I went through 53 steps.
53 steps.
To clear something
and
at
yet,
the port.
yes, when I was UN head in Namibia, when we have something to be cleared in the port, no officer goes. We send a driver. And he doesn't spend more than 3 hours there because there are only 3 steps. Is the thing for you? The answer is yes or no. You have to show your evidence. Then the next step, do you have to pay tax or not? The tax, and this was as way back, I left there at the end of 1999. Okay. I'm not talking about today.
I see.
They press a computer, this is your tax. In our case, when they press it, being the UN, it is tax-free. And if you pay your tax, they stamp it. Then you go to the place, they release you and good for you. So, first of all, the systems must be looked at, and that's where even technology now should help us more to know that. Again, there's a question of the likelihood of you are being found when you are corrupt. It's the next step that determines whether we are going to succeed in the corruption fight. And then the final one, when you are found corrupt, you will be dealt with. By now, we should have had a special court that deals only with corruption. Not that it becomes part of the system. Yeah. I mean, for example, I'm not talking about the right or wrong of asking 62 people or so to be pardoned, and you have some reasons. If we have a system that allows, the cases shouldn't have lasted for 7 years, 8 years. We must have special courts, not kangaroo courts. Whereby, I look at your face, your political color. But the same way we have land court, we have this. Because corruption is so important. And anybody who will deal with corruption in Ghana is my hero.
Excellent.
I know. President Mahama,
I say everybody.
Just a minute.
2 months, I won't pass my judgment.
Of public officers.
I say everybody.
Is it the same as what we've been advocating for? What do you hear the president talk about?
No, it doesn't appear so. Dr. Tukuno, maybe you can clarify. You see, the code of conduct we are talking about is the one that the IMF made a conditionality.
Okay, you are talking about
the law. Okay. Yeah, the contents can be the same, but the difference is that when the law will be more biting. Right. Because under Kufuor, we had a bill. Right, it was in cabinet. Then at a point, Godfrey Dame said he was the one working on it. Right. Then even September 2024, Akufo-Addo in Kumasi said the law will be passed before he leaves, but he didn't come around to doing it. And in September 2023, he went to Cape Coast and said he was going to give us a world-class law on this code of conduct for public officers. So that's that bill we want to see. The two can go in tandem. Yeah. The one, because JM in his first administration, he did the code. Yeah. So naturally, I'm sure he wants to keep developing it. But the hard law too must come. Okay. And it's an IMF conditionality. And that's why I keep crying that IMF too, the way they've relaxed it, they should have made it the first prior action. Because corruption is killing us. Because do you remember that at a point, this man, Kwame Pieni, said that Oforiatta was waiting for his share of the IMF money before leaving office. And do you think Kwame Pieni was joking? Kwame Pieni, you know the system. Yes, he said Oforiatta was waiting for his share of the IMF money before leaving. Oh, on TV.
Look, okay, we'll be back shortly after this quick break.
Money. No. Hold on. Yes. But you can't quote somebody if he's wrong. Let me tell you, IMF money is not meant for any minister.
Okay, thank you.
But the IMF money is spent.
Don't mind.
Is it not spent?
We'll be back shortly after this quick break. Please, thank you. We'll be back shortly.
is $2,700 per square meter. That's the average. And it's the West Africa Property Consultancy. You know, the last I brought the book.
Yes.
Even if you Google it, you can find excerpts online. So 2,700 in the sub-region. Now, for this building, they did at $2,068 if you don't count the ICT equipment, furniture, etc.
And the others.
Now, so you see, it means that ours is about $600 cheaper.
Okay.
$600 cheaper. And if you multiply by the size of the square meter, this one is doing 107,790 or so. You are looking at about $65 million cheaper if you are using the per square meter. And that one, that's why I say it's verifiable. So what we have to look at is that these are verifiable facts. That per square meter, this building without the furniture, etc., was done at $2,068. Meanwhile, the average in West Africa is $2,700, right? Now, even in Ghana here itself, when you compare, okay, I have a few comparisons. You look at this NPA. NPA, they are doing this at $2,500 per square meter.
Okay.
GMPC, Accra, $3,091. GMPC, Takoradi, $2,900. Let's repeat, NPA, $2,500. That's above the DOG one by about $400. GMPC, Accra, $3,091. That's far more. Then GMPC Takoradi, $2,900. This one, just this let's call it Shell for lay language. Shell is $2,068. But if you add the equipment, the extra $31 million, you get $2,400 and something. So in terms of the cost per year, we've gotten value for money because it's been cheaper than GMPC, NPA, etc. Even some of the private banks. Some of the private banks have put up towers in Accra.
Right. Let me bring up, you see, Dr. Kuna, I think when you follow the debate in Parliament, and we've had conversation on this matter, as Martin Bebo, you referenced, with Mama Yarga being here at some point. The concern is about the jump in the cost, even in the per square meter. So that if at the inception of this project, it was about $88 million, then at the time, it was supposed to be situated on a 71,000 per square meter land size. Then over time, it was increased to a little over 107,000 square meters. That's about 46% in terms of the jump in the square meter increase. But when you look at the cost increase from 88 million to over $261 million, and so over 80% increase. So that's where the concern is. I don't know if Dr. Tono, that's why I bring you in at this point.
So, Alfred, first of all, I think that I was telling Prof. Offer that the building is beautiful. I mean, it's good to have development, such infrastructure to beautify the landscape. But there is a saying in Akan that says that
right.
And I've always looked at things in this perspective. So the building started in 2020 when we were in COVID, and the economy was in crisis, and we were crying all over. Things were very difficult, and the Bank of Ghana at that time, in the midst of the crisis, in the midst of the economic difficulties, decided that the best thing they could do was to build a new office. I think that is fundamentally problematic, and that's the view we have held from that point. Now, we'll move further to the cost and whether there is indeed value for money. I am very curious to know what Martin Kpebu is referring to. Whether those analyses and those releases are current, rates, or they are 2020 rates.
The governor
this rate. No,
the governor said it.
Okay, thank you. It's the comparison that I'm talking about. The standard rates for the sub-region in terms of constructing such buildings.
2021, 2022, then 2022, 2023.
Yeah, and so if the rates at the time what you are saying compared to the others, I think that then maybe we would have to get into it. But I think the value for money audit is crucial.
Thank you.
Right.